Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last official episode of Set Lusting Bruce of 2025. This is, I think, our third year of wrapping up the year in Springsteen with my esteemed panel. I have Joyce, I have Caroline, and I have Shawn. Is it three, guys?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is our third.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I was
It's
so,
easy for me to keep track. This is Shawn, by the way. Hi,
yeah,
everybody. Since we're doing this mainly as audio for most people,
yeah,
I believe it's easy for me to keep track because Letters to You is 3 years old, and this tradition started the first year that we were around. Like that December of the year that we launched was the
yeah.
first time we did the year in review
So
conversation.
it as we started reaching the end of the year, I reached out to you guys and said, "Hey, are we in again?" And thankfully, all of you said yes.
Mhm.
So why don't we start? Shawn, you've already introduced yourself. Go ahead and give us a little bit more about you, and then we'll go around the table.
Okay. My name's Shawn Poole. I am the editor and publisher of Letters to You, a website for fans of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. And I kind of misspoke because we're not officially 3 years old until next July. We launched in July of 2023. But I used to write a lot for Backstreets. And when Backstreets ceased to operate in a regular fashion anymore, some friends of mine and I really wanted to continue that tradition as much as we could. And Letters to You was launched, as I said, in July of 2023. And that's again how I was able to figure out that it's been 3 years for us doing this because it was December of 2023 that we did our first year in review in partnership with Set Lusting Bruce.
Yeah, I really love the fact I've talked about this before in the whole spirit of instead of cursing the darkness, lighting a candle, you saw there was an option, there was an opening that a lot of people loved and enjoyed, and you stepped up, and I think it's been great, and it is certainly on my regular saved websites to go check awfully. And it is also very convenient when you subscribe, you get an update saying, "Hey, we've got new stuff."
Yeah.
So,
Thanks very much for saying that, Jesse.
yeah.
It means a
So
lot.
I'm just so happy that I'm a small part of that.
Same
Caroline,
here.
you and I got to meet in person, and
Yes, that's
we will talk about that when we get to September, but please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit, tell our listeners a little bit about you.
yes. My name is Caroline Madden. I am the author of Springsteen as Soundtrack, The Sound of the Boston Film and Television. I've also written for Backstreets and Letters to You.
All right. And Joyce, one of my favorite guests. I always love telling the story. We had the best conversation talking about Western stars and how it didn't work for you and none of it recorded. And we had to go back and do a whole different, and we did not duplicate the conversations. It was that we went a totally different path. And I am had to say that you've Western Stars has slightly grown on you. You shared with me this year. Joyce, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little about yourself.
I'm Joyce Millman, and I've been a Springsteen fan since the 70s. Saw my first concert in 1978. I was a writer writing about music and TV for the Boston Phoenix, which is sadly defunct. Then I was the TV critic for the San Francisco Examiner, also defunct. Then I was the TV critic for Salon, hanging on, but I don't know. And I have freelanced for many places, blogged, and written for Backstreets and Letters to You.
So I'm going to resist the fact of one, we could do a whole episode on, and I think I will have you back in 2026, the loss of all these wonderful papers.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pull us and talk about Pluribus, even though if you are not watching Pluribus on Apple Plus, it is an absolutely amazing TV show. And we joked that only the people who are watching this should understand the hive mind. We would reach the person who was used to be Bruce Springsteen and have them come to us. We do this once a year. So Shawn does a lot of the hard work to get us ready. He summarizes by month what's happening with Bruce Springsteen. 2024 was a really full year. And if I would have bet money, okay, 2025 is going to be down a little bit. And obviously, I would have lost money. So I'm going to stick with you, Joyce. Any quick thoughts about this year before we start breaking it down every month?
I did not see him live this year, unfortunately.
Me either.
But yeah, it was full. I'm still listening to the tracks box because that just is the gift that keeps giving. That was like my main focus this year was just trying to take that all in. And there were definite highlights. When he came out with Guns Blazing for the first night of the European tour, which is captured on that selections from Manchester, which is a really great 3-song set, and with all the political speeches intact. That was another highlight for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I misspoke, Caroline, and we did get to see Bruce perform live. Those 2 songs count. So, Caroline, how about you? Quick thoughts about the year.
Yeah, I guess the biggest things for me this year have been tracks 2 and the movie plus the Nebraska box set. Yeah, and then in terms of seeing Bruce, for me, it was at the Symposium.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everything was wonderful, but to me, having him speak truth to power is something that it brought tears to me. And I was just so proud of him as an artist and as a citizen. And I know and we'll get to this more when we get to that point in the discussion, but that was definitely a highlight. Shawn, how about you? And then you can kick us off.
If you'll remember, I was at the symposium too, Jesse. We got to
That's
meet in person
right.
as
Oh,
well.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And I definitely count that amongst the highlights of the year. That was just a great experience in many respects. And the fact that Born to Run is now 50 years old is simultaneously mind-blowing, but also just it it reaffirms a lot of what I love about being a Bruce Springsteen fan, about what he does as an artist. I can't say that I'm surprised that he is still around and still doing so much good in the world, but at the same time, while it's not surprising, it's very life affirming, very inspiring. And again, I mean, I've had my ups and downs with some of the things that happened this year, but ultimately, especially with what happened in Europe live over the spring and summer, I couldn't be prouder and happier than I am to be a fan of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band.
Well said, my friend. All right. So we kick off the new year, January 2025. You want to start us off?
Yeah, unfortunately, we kicked it off with some sad news, but Sam Moore passed away in early January 10th. Sam was a major influence on Bruce Springsteen's art, and Bruce has talked about how he and Steven would go to see Sam and Dave, who still were doing fantastic shows in the 70s in Asbury Park and in other locations. And they studied them so much because watching them perform live just inspired so much of what they would later do live and in the studio. And it's always sad when someone passes, but certainly Sam led a long life, and his music will continue to influence and inspire as long as people are around to listen to it, which I hope will be forever because it's so great. If you don't know Sam Moore and you don't know Sam and Dave, please go educate yourself because it will be a pleasurable experience to do, and you'll just learn so much and see so much of the sort of bones and muscles of what Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band's music, and Bruce Springsteen on his own. In fact, Bruce's post E Street Band outing, after he decided he wanted to pursue some other directions for a while, Sam played a major role on the Human Touch album. He sings on several of those tracks, and they're just great songs, great recordings. I'm talking about Soul Driver, Man's Job. I think he did one more, but it escapes me at the moment. But again, just a major influence and will continue to be so, in my view.
Absolutely.
I think that it just speaks to how Bruce reveres the musicians that came before him. And he was also instrumental in rescuing Ronnie Spector and Darlene Love, along with Steve. And you can hear it, the influences are there, especially on the Born to Run album. And he continues to do it today. And I think that it's very touching to see what he once did in bringing out Sam Moore and these other older musicians on stage with him. Now he's the one who's coming out and guesting with the Killers and Zach Bryan. And you just look at the joy on these young guys' faces when they're singing with him and they're on stage with the boss. And you could see that being passed through the generations. And he's been really mindful of that. I think he's become a really caring and just a really good rock elder.
An elder statesman, which
Yeah.
is, he truly is. Caroline?
I guess for me, it's unfortunate that we've lost a lot of wonderful artists this year. And just for me, it brings everything from the Letter to You tour and the album, his speaking about grief and loss, and it just really puts that into sharper context. And yeah.
Yeah, I've said this before that down south, one of the worst insults is someone forgot where they came from. And I feel like Bruce has never forgotten where he came from. He remembers his roots and he respects his roots. Yeah, even to Joe Ailey, we just lost. And Bruce has been with the official website there. He is always here. His people have always are very quick to talk about the loss that we've, when we lose someone that of significance. Yeah. Sad way to start, but as you said, life well lived. And it's kind of
Definitely.
nice that he's had his moments in the sun since then. That because of Bruce and others, I can remember the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right, where he came out and played, and yeah, really nice.
And Sam was among the first group of American Music honorees, first year of that. And I got to see him there, and it was awesome. He was a very old man at that point because he died a very old man, but it was still a thrill to see him. And he was even like he was sitting down while singing, but you close your eyes and it's just an exciting, amazing experience to be in the same room with him singing. I was very fortunate to get to see that. And he will be missed, of course, on a personal level, but he's right there. If you want to hear Hold On Common, Soul Man, or the records I mentioned he did with Bruce. Oh, and the other song on Human Touch I forgot is Real World. The studio version, I know that some people didn't like that, but go back and give it a listen again, especially Sam's contributions to it, and you'll see what we're talking about, I think. He also was very funny and very forthright, and one of the things that he did is complain openly to Bruce about how many words he has in his songs. And coming from a singer like Sam Moore, was like, they're just too many words. You got to edit some of this out because I need space to sing, Bruce, is what he said, basically. It's funny when you listen to some of Bruce's lyrics, you can hear what he's talking about. I don't know if anybody else but Bruce could pull off some of these lyrics because most singers need fewer words just to get the song in, get the singing in.
Yeah, that's very nice.
And just to bookend
Please.
Sam Moore at the beginning, Steve Cropper at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Steve Cropper's guitar parts on those Sam and Dave songs
absolutely.
should they will live forever. But yeah, it's just ironic that they both went in the same year.
Yeah.
There's a great Stax Records documentary. I think it's still available on HBO Max, where all those folks got interviewed. And it's very relevant to Bruce Springsteen, the E Street Band, because Stax was where you had black and white people
Yeah.
working together very much as equals and crossing a lot of those color lines in
Yep.
music that even when Bruce and the E Street Band were starting, were still so strong. It, people don't get a lot, I think, what a big deal it was to have a multiracial band,
Mhm.
especially in the 70s, with AOR radio being very segregated. And that was not done that was done consciously. And I think it's a result of a lot of the studying and stuff that we've been
Mhm.
talking about that Bruce
Yeah.
decided
Yeah.
he wanted to pursue that same kind of approach in his music that you see at places like Stats Records and with people like Steve Cropper and Sam Moore.
Yeah. A few years ago, probably about 4 or 5, I was talking to a friend and I was going to Memphis. Linda and I were going to spend a weekend there. And he said, go to the Stax Museum. He says,
Yeah,
I've been at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum and it's good, but I will tell you, square foot by square foot, the Stax Museum is better.
it
Oh, okay. And we did, and it was an amazing museum. And
is. Yeah,
as someone who knew, but when you see the amount of music and the diversity of that music, it's pretty crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
really well done. The other big event in January was Light of Day
yep.
Winterfest. Talk a little bit about that, Shawn.
It was Bruce back playing Light of Day Winterfest. He hadn't done that for 4 years. So it was nice to see him return. And he got a bit of birthday cake on his face when they did the big birthday cake presentation to Bob Benjamin. Thank you, Joyce. And I just thought that it was nice to see him back playing again with Joe Grusecki. He did something with Jesse Mount. I think he did Broken Radio with Jesse. It was great to see them performing again. And was anyone there? I was not there, but we had folks there. Lisa Iannucci, our contributing writer, regular contributing writer, gave a great report on it. And Mark Kranak gave us some great photos, as he always does. And it's just great to see Bruce back. I don't know if he'll be there this coming January, but it sure seems possible since he's been popping up down the shore recently. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I saw some of the clips. It's always a joy when you see Bruce just hanging out and having fun. We'll get to this just a week or so ago with him in his little baseball cap singing with little Steven. Yeah, it feels like it's almost it, performing is always fun, but it feels like it's just for fun. He doesn't have to take it as serious as I'm delivering for these people. I'm back to my roots where a bunch of us get in a garage and hang out. I know you're nodding your head, Caroline. You want to share?
I know that Bruce obviously has a long history of doing that, and I think it's awesome that he is doing it a little bit more lately. I was just thinking of the scenes in the movie where he's playing at the Stone Pony, and I just thought it was cool that they included that because they were showing this is like a tradition. Bruce does this a lot, and he just has a love for his love for the craft and music is just so deep, and it's such joy for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
As
and his
Go ahead.
love of community as well.
Yeah.
I think it's another way of him embracing the whole idea of being part of a community. He's talked about that a lot, that he never wanted to be isolated the way somebody like Elvis was. He got to learn from that, as unfortunately a lot of people did. Elvis taught people a lot of what to do and also what not to do. And one of the things is don't let yourself be that cut off from your roots, your community. And fortunately, Bruce found ways to do that, to stay
Yeah.
connected, and still does to this day.
And that isolation is such a big theme of Nebraska, and I don't know, just feels very poignant for this year, talking a lot about Nebraska.
Yeah, it
Mm.
is definitely one of those what if Elvis had a little Steven, a John Landau in their lives, his life, and that could have, and who knows, with Elvis's personality, it may not have worked, but it sure would have been interesting to see. Joyce, any thoughts?
I was not at Light of Day. I watched the clips, and I would encourage people to go find the clip of him doing Pink Cadillac at that Light of Day because it was high comedy. And it was just one of the funniest things I've ever seen him do. And there was a banging version of Promised Land. He was really feeling it. So he looked like he was having a great time.
Absolutely. I did want to bring up, and I'm going to sprinkle these in, doing double duty. In January on the podcast, David Hepworth from the UK joined me. He had a new book, The Enduring Legacy of Rock Stars. It was a very fascinating interview. It was a great book. David Barry joined me the first of this year mini visits, talking about Tramps Like Us film. And then I think the most unique answer to the Mary question I've ever gotten is from Steve Young, a former Late Night with David Letterman writer, who said that Mary got in the car, had him drive to the hardware store. She got a new spring. She came back and fixed the screen door so it won't slam anymore.
It's funny.
And I rolled and I told him, I said, Steve, that is the best answer of all time. Thank you. So we moved to February. What do we got going on here?
Speaking of set lusting Bruce, I did not put this on our list because I focused on, okay, significant events in the Bruce Springsteen career slash life approach. But I believe there was a significant anniversary this year regarding set lusting Bruce. Was there not, Jesse?
There, that may come up when we get to September, but yes,
Okay.
the podcast did hit 10 years this year, which
Congratulations.
is,
Well
thank you.
done.
Thank you. And you were very kind to do a nice little write-up about it. It was lovely. So
Of
thank you.
course.
Yes.
Of course. So February started off with the return of the Nugs live archive series. As we know, sometimes that series takes breaks when Bruce is busy touring. I don't think people realize, and I'm lucky enough to know some of this kind of behind the scenes, just how involved Bruce is with this series. Like, nothing gets released without his thumbs up on this. And sometimes things get delayed a bit until he makes it clear that he's cool with whatever the month's release is coming out in terms of it sounds good, it looks good, all that stuff. But it was exciting, or it's been exciting to me to see what they come up with. They relaunched in February and it lasted a few months, but then, of course, he had the tour coming up. But we got a Devils and Dust tour show from Vancouver, another great release, and that was great. I don't know how much we want to talk about it beyond that,
The
because
only
I know
thing
we have
I,
a lot on our plate,
yeah.
but
So yeah, and I'll just a quick comment. I think it is very easy for myself. I'll just talk about me to
right,
take that for granted. Oh, okay, we got
right.
a new release. And then realizing that as someone who never chased bootlegs, but I know there are thousands of people who were chasing bootlegs, and to have an official release with good sound of these shows is just, boy, talk about we're in a just a plentiful world.
I'll tell you
Definitely.
another thing about those releases. For the first time ever, I was at two of those releases this year. So
All right.
Cool.
the Oakland 1999 reunion tour show
Hmm.
and the 2007 Magic show. And I was thrilled when they released that Oakland 1999 show because I've often thought about it, and I've thought, did I hallucinate this? Was it was it that great? And it was that great. Like just right out of the gate, that Adam raised the Cain opener, and then the light of day with boom, and that it seemed to go on for an hour, and then he just didn't leave. Like the people we went with left before the encores, and an hour later we're still there, and it was like, did that really happen? So I was so happy to have that in my possession, to know that happened. And that 2007 magic show was really great. And I forgot how political his introductions were. He was right out there with that. Again, my personal thank you, Nugs.
For me, I think the archives are just such a blessing, especially for fans who were there, but then fans also who weren't there or weren't able to be there. It's really nice to be able to have an official way to get my Bruce education and just be able to learn and experience Bruce's long history of performing live. So look forward to the releases. There are like a lot of like bootlegs that I've listened to and have been, or shows that I've been familiar with, but there's also a lot that they end up releasing that I had no idea about. So for me, it's like my Bruce education.
Yeah, I think it's always special when they release one you were at. And I know that the Rising, they have shared that they do not have a lot of good recordings, but my first live show was the Rising tour in 2002 here in Dallas. And I will squeal like a kid at Christmas if that could ever be released officially, just to relive that experience. I've often said, if you go back in time, I said I would love to go back to that first show and just listen to it with experienced ears now and
Right.
eyes that just would love to feel that again.
I should add that we
Yeah.
are recording this at the end of December, but we're recording it before what I hope will be the continuance. Speaking of traditions and continuing traditions, I believe every year since it started at Christmas time, we end up getting a special release right before Christmas. So I'm hoping that either tomorrow or maybe on Christmas Eve, we'll get a special release of some type from the archives. And you never know, Jesse, it just might be that Rising show, but we don't
Dan
know.
is listening to me. That'd be great.
And I just wanted to point it out because people might be wondering, what are they talking about? They just released whatever.
Yeah, we're
We don't
recording
know
this on
yet
December
what it,
22nd.
yeah, as we record this, we don't know what we'll
Yeah.
all be celebrating or not come
Yeah.
the next few days.
So a few years ago, Bruce sold his catalog for a little bit of money. And of course, there is a shorthand in my house, and pardon me for just a minute going off. My son is a huge WWE fan, and we talk a lot about, we call them the WWE Bruce fans that complain about everything. The packaging was stupid on tracks 2. Why did we have to have this box on that? Why didn't I get this? Why didn't John Cena win his last match? Like that, there is a very small sect, but a loud sect of people that are quick to just criticize everything. And there was a lot of discussion about Bruce selling out for his catalog. And smarter people than me said their guess was this is a purely estate planning move. That this way he doesn't have that burden on his children, that he's now taking care of them, and he's trusts this company to do that. So that was a little bit of controversy, settled down, and the worry was that they were going to now use his music on commercials. And February 9th, it happened. Shawn, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the Super Bowl, of course, was February 9th. And during, I believe, it was the fourth quarter of the game, a commercial aired from Dove Beauty Products, and it used Born to Run in a new version recorded by HER. I'm not real familiar with her. I know a bit about her, but her stands for Having Everything Revealed. What I have heard, I'm very impressed by her. And I thought that the version of Born to Run that we got to hear a bit of, we've never gotten to hear the full version of it. I thought it was intriguing. I'd like to hear the full version. It was supposed to come out shortly after the commercial aired, but I don't know what happened. And I checked just as we got ready to record to see if, hey, maybe I missed it. Maybe it came out. As far as I know, it is still unavailable officially anywhere. But the commercial was designed to spotlight Dove's support and presumably her support as well, since she was part of this, of something called the Body Confidence Sport Program. And if you go to our article on it, it's archived from February of 2025. By the way, you can go to Letters to You at the top of the website or however you're looking at it. Just look for the words archive and you can click on that and you can look month by month at what was going on in Bruce's world then, so to speak.
You
In
can
fact,
follow.
that's my big cheat for coming up with this list every year. I can just go back to the archive and zip through it and go, okay, what happened this month?
I guess I should have started the episode. Please turn your hymn book to your website too and
Yes,
follow along as we go.
that's right. But yeah, I thought it was a good commercial as far as these things go. I think the program is good. It's all about trying to build body confidence in girls ages 11 to 17, encourage them to stay in sports. That is a crucial time period in many girls' lives in this country where they start to feel the pressures in our society, unfortunately, that still exists, that make them feel more self-conscious about their bodies and about their sexuality, all those things that come up in the teen years. The pressure obviously is very much on girls and it affects their involvement in things like organized sports. So this program is trying to counter that with positive images and ways of encouraging them to stay active in athletics. So I think it's a great thing and was an interesting use of the song. And if you know the history behind Born to Run and the influence of girl groups on that record, I think it's especially appropriate that the song ended up being used this way. But yeah, that's what happened.
I did not know that Locomotion, he said at the symposium, was a blatant ripoff of the beginning of Born to Run. Caroline, I just saw you nodding.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about how the sale of his music, it went against a lot of what I talked about in my book, which was that he was very choosy about what types of media are using his songs. So that kind of takes away a lot of my like thesis, but that's okay. There's always so much. Even my book came out in 2020, and I just think of all the different things he's done even since then. It's been 5 going on 6 years. But yeah, I know that I saw like on the message boards on Backstreets, like everyone in a tizzy and afraid that his music would be used for, I don't know, like cheesy soda commercials or something. But I think thus far it hasn't been in anything too wild. And as Shawn wonderfully explained, like it's actually been used in really great ways so far.
Yeah, my lovely bride was over 30 years ago. She tells the story. If she had to eat one more lean cuisine, she was gonna go up on the roof and jump off. So she started running and stayed exercising. She still does. She gets up at 3:34 in the morning and meets her best friend and they walk in the morning. And she said, "I wish I had gotten in organized sports in high school. I wish I had." She was the type, and she says that if I couldn't be good at something, I didn't do it. And now then I just know. And so I think anything that sends that message is a positive message. And so I think it's pretty cool that it's being used in that way. Yeah.
I think the first quote big, although I don't think it was that big a deal because it slipped by a lot of people's radars, commercial use of the music after the sale of his rights was some kind of jeans ad. I can't remember the details, but they had somebody singing Dancing in the Dark. Does anybody recall that? I remember reading a bit about it somewhere.
I think Dancing in the Dark jeans ad.
Yeah. Or it had been for some kind of apparel, if not jeans. But I, it's we don't
I
need to
don't see.
delve
Okay.
into it. But I
Yeah.
was going to say though that none of us really know, and I don't think anyone does, because the details of that deal are still like pretty secret. I have gotten some information that leads me to believe that there's still a level of approval involved with the usage of his music. I mean, legally on paper, of course, his music is no longer his. It is
Yeah.
the property of Sony and all that. But at least I don't know what happens when he will record new music. If he releases a newly recorded album, I guess it still falls under that deal. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have gotten the impression that there is some vetting involved and some discussions, and they're not necessarily going to do something that he is totally opposed to. So again, I don't know if, every single usage of his music in a movie or in a commercial
Yeah.
is necessarily he gave it the thumbs up totally, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was done with his approval because
Mm.
her in interviews conducted around this talks about interacting with him
Yeah.
and what a fan she is of him, and his response was that he's a big fan of her. So I get the impression that he probably was happy about the usage of his music in this way, but I don't know.
Okay. Very nice. All right. So, one significant thing that happened for me in March, as we move on to March,
Okay.
is one of my favorite podcasts that's also part of the Pantheon Network is the Story Song Podcast, where three old friends basically take a story song and they just overanalyze it while joking about it. They do a lot of 70s songs and just they have a lot of fun. And Rachel Oates is one of the co-hosts, and she joined me in March, and it was a joy to talk to her. Sometimes you get guests that are just for you. You're like, I don't know if anyone else wants to hear this, but I want to talk to Rachel. So that was an amazing get for me to have her. And we keep pushing them to do a Springsteen story song. March was light. The only thing we big had was the archives, right?
Yep. That's the only thing that really happened in quote Bruce's world
Yeah.
as a public action as a musician was the release of a that month's Nugs Live Archives release. It was an interesting one. It's from 2012. It's an Omaha, Nebraska show, so it was on the Wrecking Ball tour, and he played, not surprisingly, a lot of Nebraska songs. But interestingly, he did not play Nebraska, which is the only song on Nebraska in which Nebraska is actually mentioned. So there you go. That's Bruce being Bruce.
Very nice. So we move to April. April, we start getting a little busy, right?
Yeah, right,
Uh,
right out of the gate,
yeah.
there's an announcement that the collection that people have been fantasizing about for years, Tracks 2, is coming out. And interestingly, this time around, it's called The Lost Albums. And we're told that it's actually going to be a set of 7 full-length albums rather than just outtakes. It's like these are albums that he might have released had things gone differently, but that's what we're told with the official announcement.
Shawn,
And
can you
it's
remember what your thoughts were when you heard that?
I was I was certainly intrigued and interested and looking forward to hearing it. I had gotten to hear of just a few of those tracks when I took a trip to the copyright office in Washington where you could actually hear some of this stuff because at least for some of his filings with copyrights back in the day, Bruce would also submit recordings of the finished work or whatever as part of his copyright submission. And because they're considered government documents, you could actually go and sit and arrange a time in the Library of Congress Copyright Office. They give you headphones and the appropriate equipment, and you can listen to the tracks. And that was the only way you could hear this music back then. So it was cool to hear that it was finally coming out. And I'll have more to say about it, I guess, when we get to the actual month that it came out, late June.
All right. How about you, Caroline? When you heard this happening, what were your thoughts?
I was happy because I was also waiting for it. It had been so long since the last one, and it was just something you always hear people talking about. So I was glad that it was released, and I was definitely intrigued by the fact that it was more cohesive material in the sense that, like, these were almost albums. Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about it when we get there.
Absolutely. Joyce?
I can't remember when we got the breakdown of what these 7 albums were going to cost. I don't know if it was with the first
That was later.
announcement,
Yeah.
It wasn't
because
in April.
when I remember thinking, okay, this is great. How much am I going to be in for here? And then, oh boy, that, that was sticker shock, but it was worth it.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about, once again, this is partly how the WWE Bruce started, is my son said, wait a minute, you're telling me that I could get matches that are considered legendary that never got recorded and I could now watch them? I would just say, give me my money. Here, take it. Yeah, it was very, once again, I love the idea of we're getting all this and just curious how good is this going to be? Like, I want it because I'm a mark. I want everything, what you're going to do. And so there was just this anticipation that was, at least from mine, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? What's it going to be? So really crazy. He contribute a little bit. You want to talk a little bit about that, Shawn?
Yeah, just like a day or two after, yeah, it was 2 days after the announcement of Tracks 2. This had been announced, we knew it was coming, but the Waterboys album, Life, Death, and Dennis Hopper, was released. A really interesting album. And Bruce delivers this, in my view, the word I use is killer. It's a killer spoken word contribution to the end of 10 Years Gone. Just a great track. And it recalled for me, there's a Lou Reed track, Street Hassle, from back in the 70s, to which Bruce contributed a spoken word. Very different style than this one, but just even when he's not singing, and it's musical in a way, poetic possibly, but if you get a chance, you haven't checked it out yet, just check out 10 Years Gone from the Waterboys album. It's a great track, and Bruce does a great spoken word contribution to it.
Nice. The Record Store Day, The Killers, Encore at the Garden Valley, Encore at the Garden. Any thoughts on that, Shawn? Anything you want to share?
I love the movie.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch, and I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad that they put the movie up for streaming, because doing the rare vinyl EP thing is, I guess, nice if you're into that. Personally, I don't get the whole vinyl fetish, if you will. I grew up with vinyl, and I was glad to see it go. And I liked looking at the big album covers. I agree with that, but there are other ways to do that. And I don't think vinyl, the whole idea that it sounds so much better than other ways of conveying music, I don't buy it. And the thing about it, it's pure physics. Maybe if you want to argue that a freshly cut, mastered vinyl LP that you get to listen to for the first time will sound better or whatever. But after that, you play it a few more times, you're done. It's going to start having its wear and tear, and so be it. To each their own for people who want to collect vinyl. But the Killer's vinyl version of Encore at the Garden was really hard for people to get. So I'm just glad that they decided to put out the music in a way that everybody could hear it, not only hear it, but get to see pro shot footage of that night. And it's just a nice encore. Jake and Bruce were great special guests, and I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all of, Bruce's recordings. If I were going to rank his greatest recordings, so to speak, I wouldn't necessarily put it up there, but I thought it was cool. And the Killers are a pretty darn good band.
And I always like to see the next generation kind of including him in that. It's yeah. The big thing is the American Music Honors 2025.
I want to jump back to a second for a
Please.
second though, because Joyce mentioned how special some of these Nugs live archive shows are, and that month's release was coinciding with the month that we lost, the month in 2008 when we lost Danny Federici. So they released one of the shows that were done just in the wake of Danny's passing, and that was just another great moving show, and it's good that was finally released. So
Officially,
I just
yeah.
wanted to throw that in there too. That
Good,
that
yeah,
happened right before Record Store Day.
yeah,
But yeah, on to the American Music Honors.
yeah. One of the things that they talked about, Shawn and Caroline, is right. It is every time Bob or Elaine talked about Bruce Springsteen Archives and Center for
Eileen.
American Music. Eileen, yes.
Yeah.
It is, do not call it the Bruce Springsteen Archives. This is specifically, he wanted this to not just be about his legacy,
Mhm.
legacy of American music all the way around. And I think this is partly that my wife and I are big fans of presidential museums, regardless of the politics, regardless of the party. We just, anytime there is one near us when we can go, when we're on vacation, we go because it's just fascinating to see that slice of history. And next year, when we're doing this, knock on wood, we're going to be talking about the official opening of the center. So that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, American Music Honors. You want to share a little bit? And then we'll discuss, Shawn.
Yeah, I was fortunate to be there.
Oh,
Some
nice.
some people also might have gotten to see. They've done a really nice thing if you live in or near the area of the Archives and Center for American Music at Monmouth University, where they screen professionally filmed version of it, and you can go see it on the big screen in the same theater where it occurred. They usually do that around November of each year, so I think they did it. Yeah, they did it November this year. This was obviously hands down the most overtly political version of the American Music Honors. They've only been around for 3 years, but this one of the honorees was Tom Morello, so that should tell you you're going to expect to hear some
Yeah.
politics with Tom around on stage. But it was a preview of what Bruce was going to get up to shortly when he got to Europe, because from the moment they started, there was talking about rising up against oppression and censorship and all the wonderful things we're dealing with these days across the country. And Tom Morello, of course, gave a great acceptance speech. And then Smokey Robinson said, Tom, if you decide to run for anything, you've got my vote. It was, when you talk about that whole intergenerational thing, just seeing stuff like that happen was, it was just great. For those of us who needed that shot in the arm politically, you couldn't ask for a better night, in my view. And we got to see Patty. Patty came and performed with Emmylou Harris, which was a great moment. And Stevie singing with Smokey Robinson on Tears of a Clown. Just, and Bruce's tribute to Joe Ely. He did a solo version of All Just to Get to You. And they had this great video that played behind Bruce. And Joe's YouTube channel now has that video up. It's not Bruce's version from that night, but it's the version that he and Bruce recorded together with the same video playing. And I just thought that video was great. I thought Tom Zimney put it together. It was that good, but it actually was done by someone, I think, in the Joe Ely camp. Just beautifully edited, great images of Joe and Bruce. And it was just another great night. And I'm so glad that this is going to be, I presume, another annual thing. That's what they've committed to. So it's going to be interesting to see who they pick each year too for these honors.
Joyce?
I'm glad that he honored Joe Ely when Joe was still here,
Yes.
even though he couldn't attend. That is a huge loss. And I don't know if we'll get to it later on in the year, but huge loss. And I encourage people to read the letter to you piece about it, about Joe Ely's passing. You had the link to a really beautiful Texas Monthly appreciation of Joe Ely too on that piece.
That's a great article.
Yeah.
What a loss. I haven't seen, I wish I could see the film of the entire, but I did see the clip of the finale of This Land Is Your Land.
Yeah.
And it was pretty ragged, but there was a lot of spirit in there. And I watched it a few times because it was so rousing. And they had Jackson Brown was on there and Woody Guthrie's daughter. And
Nora.
And it's really great. So people should definitely check that out.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that's going to be a big event each year. So I think that's wonderful. And I really appreciate the American music part of the archives that they're going to develop. I'm just looking forward to all the different events, and I think it's incredible that they're giving us these opportunities to be in the room or experience or be able to watch all of these great artists together.
Yeah, I just think it's so lovely that they are going to start this. And a couple of years ago, we went up to Tulsa and went to the Woody Guthrie Center and we went to the Bob Dylan Center, and both of them just amazing. So I'm just so glad that we're going to have this center and that they're doing these kind of things. So absolutely. A couple of things that happened for Set Listing Bruce. An episode that I was really proud of, Jessie Lou Lawson from the UK, her and a friend did a podcast, did Because the Boss Belonged to Us. And it was a series of podcasts discussing, is Bruce Springsteen a gay icon? It was truly one of my favorite podcasts of all times. It was interesting, it was thoughtful, it gave me a different perspective of Bruce as a 60-something old white guy. And Jesse joined us, and it was just a lovely interview. And then the other thing I do every April, I started this 5 or 6 years ago, and now then every March, I got to come up with, okay, what's going to be my April Fool's episode? And this year it was Set Lusting Bruce, and I did the podcast as if this was a Bruce Boxleiter podcast. And I did artwork, I did a new theme song. Karen, who is on the JKL Media podcast with me, joined me and we talked about Scarecrow and Mrs. King, and we went to a deep dive, and I was pretty proud of that one. So Set Lusty Bruce, all about Bruce Boxleiter. Yeah. All right.
How long did this joke continue?
I did a whole episode.
Oh, wow.
We did a whole episode. We never broke character. This is all about it. We did. And yeah, so every year I do that. I've had the overly enthusiastic Springsteen fan. I've had the world's worst podcast host guest where every word is a one-word answer. I try to do something. I had a couple years ago the guy that everything after darkness was crap, and he was my guest for that, everything. So yeah, I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do this April. Yeah.
Okay.
Contribute
We got to
to
keep
the bit.
our eye on you.
Yes, there we go. Okay, so now we move on to May. And just a little thing happened. I think let's first talk about losing Tinker. I know that is absolutely. I was lucky enough a few years ago to have Mike Appel on the podcast, and I told him, you are a founding father in the terms of as if we were talking about Hamilton or Jefferson. I said, you are a founding father of the Springsteen Nation. I certainly think Tinker West is included in that. and in staying there with him. Shawn.
If nothing else, you don't get Mike Appel without Tinker. Tinker introduced Bruce to Mike Appel and wanted that relationship to flourish, if you will. And I think that speaks about what kind of person he was. He was Bruce's manager for a period, but he was also clearly a friend who, when he saw that this was a way for his friend to advance his career, helped make that happen. He was quite a character. If you read Bruce's Born to Run autobiography and his eulogy online, you'll get a taste of what Tinker was like. I didn't know the man personally, but I'm just, in terms of how he's been written about and his role in Bruce's career and his life. He was not officially Bruce's first manager. I've seen some reports stating that, and that's erroneous because officially Tex Vineyard, who managed the Castiles, Bruce's first band, you could say, was officially Bruce's first manager, but he certainly was a very early manager of Bruce. We're talking the period of like Child and Steel Mill and that period of Bruce. And obviously he was Bruce's manager directly before Mike Appel. And he remained a lifelong friend of Bruce even after their manager client relationship ended.
Very nice. Carolyn?
I was gonna say similar, just from the Born to Run book and even like the Broadway show, like it does feel like we knew him in a sense. And I'm just grateful that Bruce had so many people in these very beginning of his career that were instrumental in helping him. But yeah, he Tinker seemed like a really cool guy, and I loved hearing all the stories that Bruce had about him.
I don't know him. Never, I
Yeah.
didn't meet him. But Bruce had a lot of surrogate fathers. And I think he might have been the last one. Maybe John Landau is the surrogate father.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm not sure. But certainly the Tex Vineyard and Carl Tinker were. That's what happens when you get to be as old as Bruce is.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Another life well lived. He died at 89. And as recently as just a few years ago, we covered the opening, not the opening, but the official announcement of the new building coming up for the archives at Monmouth, Center for American Music, etc. And Tinker was there. And there's a great photo that Mark Cranack caught of Tinker, Vinny Lopez, and Bruce, just seeing them, those guys together at that kind of event where it's going to be, there's now going to be this huge building on the campus of Monmouth University. And yes, it's not just about Bruce, but he's at the center of it.
Yeah.
And just thinking back to where it all started and hanging out with those guys and how it just things developed and progressed to where they are now. It's great that he got to be there just to see that happen and be part of that. And I'm sure that it was quite a thrill and a kick for him. And it's unfortunate that he didn't make it to see the building officially open this coming April, I think it's going to be. But he did live a long life, and a lot of people loved him, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We've already talked about the Oakland Arena release, but I guess the big news is Bruce decided, you know what? I'm all out of F's and I'm going to speak my truth. And we've talked a little bit about this, but when word came out that what he was doing and how he was speaking upset some people, some very strong fans were upset about this because of we are very divided as a nation, actually as a world, but it it made me proud. I've said that before. The band sounded great. The set list was powerful. And I think there is a long history of political activism through rock and roll. And I'm going to change things up. Joyce, start out with your thoughts on this kicking off the tour and everything.
I was watching for the set list. I was wondering if I was hoping he would add Rainmaker to the set, and he did. And when I saw that list, it was like, oh yeah, Rainmaker, House of a Thousand Guitars. And then I started seeing the reports of his introductions and what he said, and he kept, I think he had, were there three introductions that are captured on that Manchester
Yes.
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
And each it just kept getting more and more powerful. And I was so proud of him and so excited. And I want him to be able to say that on American soil.
Yes.
Like why there is a tradition of artists who have to go to Europe, it usually was, to speak
Yeah.
their minds. But that really should not be. And I think he will. I think when he comes back to the US on tour, hopefully that will be soon.
Yes.
I think he will continue. And it was just, I think that I don't remember which song it was the intro to, but he was just like this long list of civil rights erosion, billionaires controlling thing, immigrants and this, and he was going on, and he kept repeating, this is happening now. This is happening now. And I'm hoping that some people, fans who were not paying attention, heard that from him and said, what? And started to educate themselves. I'm hoping. But again, his remarks were just, I was so proud of him.
Yeah.
For going off like that. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I don't know. I have so many thoughts. But yeah, no, I completely agree with Joyce. That was of course, I'm so proud of him. But that was my one kind of, I don't know, maybe like gripe with it was that I wish that he would or could say it in America. And I don't know, like, I feel like that might even be maybe dangerous. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I think it needs to be said here. But regardless, that's just how it worked out that he was touring Europe then. Yeah, and I love listening to that whole like little Manchester album. I love Chimes of Freedom. I always loved the other version that he had released, but this just feels very moving. Yeah, I just think obviously it was very powerful statements I personally agree with, and I just personally don't understand how anyone could be like surprised or confused. A lot of these things that he's standing for are prevalent throughout his whole body of work, even when he was a young man. Yeah, very powerful. And I really hope that I can hear that message here in America one day.
Has I know that he did Chimes of Freedom. It was on that July 4th Gothenburg show like years ago, decades ago. Has he done Chimes of Freedom in the United States, or
Yeah,
I'm
he did
trying to
it. He did it. He actually did it first on the Darkness tour. And I think it
oh,
was somewhere out in California.
Oh, wow.
oh,
And it's based, obviously, it's a Bob Dylan song, but the
yeah,
version that he does is based on the Byrds cover of
yeah.
it. And I think it was debuted at one point on the Darkness. I don't know how many times on Darkness he did it, but he
I
definitely did it in the
yeah,
US after they launched the Human Rights Now tour.
yeah.
So when they would do
Oh,
that, like
you mean
mini
yeah.
greatest hits type set with Bruce and the E Street Band, he would then bring out, I mean, it was more than just Bruce and the band because it was a number that
Right.
incorporated everybody who was on the tour. So it was done at the end of the night as part of the encore. I'd say it counts as a Bruce version. So he's performed it. Sorry, my cat decided to join us. He's performed it on that tour or he
Hmm.
performed it regularly on that tour. So all those U.S. stops, I know he did Philly because I saw it in Philly. He played it in California. Where else did they stop on that tour, if anybody else knows, in the
I
U.S.? I
I
know it
don't
wasn't a whole lot
remember.
of U.S. shows, if I
I
remember correctly.
didn't see it.
Oh, really? That was a good one.
I know that it was in Oakland. I did not
Yeah.
go to that, but
Can't be at the mall.
no, I would like to see that become the sign-off song for the next American leg of the tour.
Yeah, I would like that too. I'm going to let you talk about it, but also, did you get you running a website and this blog? Did you get some negative feedback from
I did
because
I did not.
that's
Certainly
good.
nothing. And if I did, I don't remember.
Okay,
It would be
good.
that small, but I don't think I did. And we wrote extensively about it. We had a photo montage, if you will, of kind of recap of the tour afterwards. I
Hmm.
think it's one of the most important things he's ever done.
Mm.
And as the editor publisher of Letters to You, I wanted us to give it that kind of attention. So we had several people write about various spots on the tour that they saw. And I dig a few weeks into it, I dig some questions about it. Where could this go? Type of thing, analysis of it. I don't think you could say enough. I can't think of another major artist either to date who's done this kind of nightly nightly statement about what's going on. I'm sure there are some people who might say one or two things from the stage or wherever. It was embedded in the show. That's
Yeah.
what the show was about, essentially, if you want to say what was the theme of the show. And it was interesting because these were just supposed to be makeup dates originally for spots that he missed due to his illness. And it was just kind of a brief European run. It only went from April to I think the end of June or early July at the latest.
Yeah,
And Variety had asked him about a month before the tour started. They got to interview him, I guess, in relation to Tracks 2 at that time, if his concerts might reflect what's been going on since the last presidential election. And he said that that's one of the artist's jobs is to make sense of what's going on in the times you live in. So he said, I'm sure we'll do something. So there was already that hint.
Yeah.
And then about a week before the tour started, they announced that the tour is now being called the Land of Hope and Dreams Tour, which I thought, okay, that's interesting.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
I still don't think I certainly didn't expect him to go out full guns blazing the way he did and make it so much a part of the show. I just
No.
thought this will be a continuation of the tour and the tour that we knew, which didn't really have a name. It was just the 2023 tour or the 2024
yeah.
tour as time went on. And this obviously was a completely different animal. And I'm I'm very happy that he did it the way he did it. And I don't know about what the future will bring because obviously none of us do. He's hinted that the next thing he does will be some kind of non-E Street solo album, so that might be a very different kind of tour. It won't be
Mhm.
an E Street Band tour, I don't think. But he's, as always, there's no crystal ball to know what Bruce is going to do next. Sometimes I think he's still figuring it out, which is understandable. He's a cautious man sometimes, and that's a good way to be. But I think he's clearly committed to speaking his mind on this. And he did officially on US soil make some of these statements. They weren't tours, but when he got his award, and we can talk about this more when we get into the movie period later in the year, but he got a special award from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the people who do the Academy Awards every year. And that actually occurred on the same day as a No Kings rally. And what he said was related very much to that. And I think it couldn't be clearer that he's not going to shut up and he's not intimidated, and good on him for that.
No. And the thing that he just basically scrapped the whole structure of the tour up to then, which
Mm.
was very personal to him and very choreographed and very tight.
Yes.
And the final show of that tour in Vancouver, which I was at, it was getting a little looser. And he did, and this was post-election, And he did that 3-pack, like he did Atlantic City and Long Walk Home, Youngstown, Atlanta. And that was very fiery. He didn't go on. He didn't speak Atlanta. He said it's a prayer for my country. But he was angry in that show.
Yeah.
And then and I remember thinking that as I was sitting there looking at the set list come through for Manchester, this was at the time when people trying to get back in the US were having to turn over their phones to be inspected and stuff. And when he comes back, what are they going to try to do to him when he tries to get through customs? But Taco, Trump went on and on about how washed up and overrated he is, and then nothing. So it's best to push. It's always
it
best
is.
to just push.
And one of the things I thought about, I couldn't wait to play this for my wife. And it got a little press coverage, people talking about this, which I thought was good. And I honestly did think of you, Joyce, when Western Scars came out, you're like, I wanted a political album. I needed him. And then I thought of you like, oh, she can't say that now.
No, I finally, and it was more than I could even hope for.
Yeah.
He got there. He got there. It took him a while.
And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the way he talked about it, I thought was just, of course, articulate. One of the things that I had a discussion with Craig Colby, I think, where during the pandemic, he and I were talking about how good the From My Home to Yours. And Craig said, we know he's a brilliant storyteller. Why are we surprised he's so good at telling a story this way? Of course, he can tell a story any way you want. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So June, a tough month for me. My first musical hero was Brian Wilson. 1977, I bought Endless Summer on an 8-track, and my music life was never the same. I explored every Beach Boy release I could find. I read every book I could find, and I knew I had saw him 2 or 3 years ago, and he was in really bad shape. He had to have a walker. He was really not singing. The band was doing all the music, and I went, he's not doing well. And then losing his beloved wife, but it's still sad. And I love, not love, that's the wrong word, but I thought it was very fitting that Sly Stone and Brian Wilson in the same week, two musical geniuses, two very different from each other, but two incredibly influential people. Do you want to start us off, Shawn?
Yeah, and major influences on Bruce Springsteen's music, in my view.
Yeah.
Brian Wilson is the most obvious one because Bruce himself has talked extensively about what Brian Wilson means to him. And I think one of his great quotes is, you don't get racing in the street without Brian Wilson, because Don't Worry Baby is the granddaddy of racing in the street. And he didn't talk about Sly Stone at all. Stevie did, which was good. Again, we come back to that consciously interracial band, conscious melding of rock music and soul music into something new and exciting and inspiring. And all that is in Sly and the Family Stone. But yeah, we did Tom Zimney and Frank Marshall worked together on a great documentary about the Beach Boys. Came out the summer before Brian's passing. And Bruce isn't in it, but we got to talk with Tom about Bruce and the Beach Boys, and we compiled a lot of historical quotes and connections. So you can go back and check that out. But yeah, it's again, when you talk major influences, they don't get any bigger than Brian Wilson and Sly Stone. They're up there with Sam Moore and the other people we've been talking about tonight.
I recommend, there is a great podcast called A History of Rock and Roll in 500 Songs by Andrew Hickey. And his episode 175. It came out in June of 2024. Everyday People by Sly and the Family Stones. And
Mm.
he talks about the history, and I was not aware of how much influence Sly Stone had on music, more than just
Right.
so. Yeah, I really recommend if you want to know more about him. Absolutely brilliant episode. Joyce, thoughts?
I think that we were talking about Elvis and how Bruce didn't want to end up like Elvis.
Yeah,
I think Brian Wilson and Sly Stone, two absolute geniuses, like musical geniuses, straight up, and very troubled people in their own
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
They both had very sad stories. And so, again, I think it is fitting that they were intertwined at the end. But I think that the Sly and the Family Stone influence on Bruce and the E Street Band, it came into fruition, I think, with when Patty joined and then Susie joined,
Mhm.
and then now it's like he's got the whole choir, it's the multiracial,
Yeah.
multi-ethnic, and he's got horns.
Yeah,
So he's finally got that rock and R&B soul review that he's been slowly assembling piece by piece.
that's
So
true.
it's cool to see.
That's very cool. Caroline?
Yeah, I think Shawn and Joyce put it very nicely.
Okay, very nice. So, yeah, we do get the first trailer from the movie, and ecstatic about that. I think we'll just save the movie
Well, some
talk.
of us were. I'll put it
Oh,
that way.
yeah, share.
To me, it felt like the first sign that this might not be that something to get that excited about. For one, it contained a scene that eventually got edited from the film, and I don't think for good reasons. I think it got edited from the film because they realized that people aren't gonna like this thing, like this particular scene. And I'm talking
The
about
hole, the
the
hole in the
infamous, yeah,
floor.
the hole in the floor and the that whole thing. He's gonna save the world after he saves himself, and it just felt, wait a minute, what's going on here? So,
It did seem a little grandiose, right? Yes.
and just not true either. Bruce never grew up with what they described. For the record, Bruce always talked about his room being above, I guess you would call it like an air duct or something that would have been connected to some kind of HVAC type system of the day, so to speak. But it wasn't connected. But the floor was not a hole, like you couldn't fall through it. It was
Right.
covered by a grate or whatever. And what he would say is it was over the stove in his house. And if his father didn't like him playing music, his father could turn on the stove and he would use the word smoke him out of the room to turn down the goddamn guitar and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the significance of it. So it was like, it wasn't even accurate to the stories he would tell about it. And then it was like, what are we talking about here? Who is this character?
Mm.
It just had to quote another famous film, I had a bad feeling about this when I saw that trailer. But
And I was a mark. I was in all way. I was like, I'm ready. I just can't really see this. I love the bear. A Springsteen movie, take my money. Just there. I'm there. I'm right there. Caroline,
and
I see you
full
smiling.
disclosure, to be fair too,
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of biopics to begin with. And
Yeah.
yes, I've heard the numerous things. This is not a biopic. It is a biopic, Bruce. I hate to say that, but it is a
Hmm.
biopic. It might not cover the territory of your
Yeah.
entire life, but it counts as a biopic. And I'm just not a big fan of them in general. So I already was
Yeah.
okay, there's going to be a Bruce biopic. I wasn't too excited about it. And then when that first trailer appeared, it was like, that didn't help matters.
Everything you were worried about is coming. You're like,
Right, yeah,
oh,
it's
yeah,
right there in the trailer.
I'm warning signs.
Yeah.
Caroline, how about you?
Yeah, I definitely hated that moment in the trailer. I was just afraid it would be too like self-aggrandizing, you know what I mean? Or like playing too much into this mythological idea of who Bruce is. And I don't necessarily think the movie ended up doing that, but I'm very glad that they got that. And oh, I was also gonna say, I think biopics are extremely hard to get right. I know we'll talk about it more, I guess, when we
Yeah.
talk about the movie, but it is a difficult genre to
Yeah,
nail.
I think the better ones are when you do a specific time period.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of Love and Mercy, obviously, because of Brian
Me too.
Wilson, but because of that, it's built working on Smile and then him with Eugene Landy. But the big news for my 66th birthday, which is on June 3rd, was Tracks 2 being released. It was expensive. And there was the WWE Bruce fans were out in full voice. No one wanted to hear that you could listen to it on Spotify for free. You could just get the digital version for under what, $80. But there was a lot of noise, and I was overwhelmed with the amount of music. And in fact, I came up with the plan and I outsourced. So I had 9 different episodes where a different guest joined me and they focused on just one album so we could talk about it. So, Joyce, you started this like we were talking about. You were still trying to get your way through this. So, just go wherever you want about these lost albums. And someone said they're the shelved albums, not the lost albums, because he never lost them. I can't remember who made that comment, but it's a pretty good one.
Okay. So my number one, the
Yep.
Twilight Hours. I obviously bought the CD box, and that was pricey, but
Still paying it off.
damn it, it was worth it. These, I don't understand why he never released Twilight Hours, for instance. It's one of my favorite Bruce albums. It's a great Bruce album. It's so cohesive, and it sounds like nothing else he's ever done, not even Western Stars, really, which is a Bruce singing album rather than a band album. And it's a whole different, I'm a sucker for the whole Burt Bacharach sound and the Frank Sinatra sound, and
Yeah.
that's what this album is. And it's just so unexpected and so beautifully realized. It's some of his most visual songwriting, and the instrumentation is just incredible, and his voice is incredible. His singing is so mature, and it's such a different, he's really singing, he's crooning, as I said in my Letters to You review.
Yeah.
Why not release that? I don't know. That was an insanely good album. And then my number two was
Hang on,
Faithless.
I want to just, we're going to go through that, but I just wanted to say, I've thought too, I would love some of the modern, and I realize Harry Connick Jr. isn't modern, but other song stylists to do some of these songs, like a couple of them to be standards to play. It would be amazing. Yeah, I love that album too. Caroline, any thoughts on that one?
The Faithless one or Track
The Twilight
Twilight
Hours.
Hours.
Twilight? It's hard for me because I just have it on Apple Music and they don't list the names of the
Yes,
album.
that is
I'm just lost.
yeah, no, I got it. How about you, Shawn?
Yeah, on Apple Music, they just say disc one, disc two, disc
Yes.
three,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
You just have to use like Letters to You as a guide or whatever.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of people, including Caroline and Joyce, to write different reviews of. We ended up having a team, if you will, take on this massive amount of music, which I thought made a lot of sense, and it worked out beautifully because we got some great insights and reviews on each of these separate albums. I think I'm with Joyce that my favorite of the whole set is probably Twilight Hours, although there are things on the other records that I love as well. I also feel like there was a lot that wasn't that good. And I do feel like it was a bit weighty in terms of, I don't know if it was that important to release all this as actual albums. There's a lot of material on it that I didn't think was up to par as far as even interesting on an outtakes level, so to speak, compared to his officially released recordings. Just didn't feel as strong, but we can get into more of that. And I do want to address the pricing briefly
Please.
because we did write about it. I felt like we said what had to be said about it. The people affected by it are mainly people who wanted the physical media, which obviously is in decline these days. There aren't as many people who buy vinyl or CD collections, and I get why that is. And I appreciate that the digital world offered a way to hear this music without paying that. But there was no way to get the liner notes, which include some of Bruce's comments on these records, unless you bought the set. So fans who wanted that had no alternative. And we live in an age where there is such a thing as Kindle type technology.
Mhm.
People, there could have been a digital version of the book that came with the box set. And I'm sure many fans, myself included, would have been fine with paying a bit extra to get the digital version that has the book rather than spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars for this physical set that, quite frankly, I'm probably never going to play a disc from it, but I wanted it for the book, needed it, if you will, as the editor publisher. And full disclosure, no, I don't get free box sets, review copies, or whatever. And I'm glad that I don't, because then I can give a more honest review in a way of, is this something that you'd really want to spend this much money on? But I also want it to go on record. The pricing was set by Sony. We're back to Bruce's deal. Sony is responsible for this pricing, not Bruce Springsteen, Landau Management, whatever. And I think we made that clear in our reporting on it, that our problem was with how Sony priced the physical box set. And people kept saying it's going to go down, it's going to go down. I just checked. It's not down. Here it is, Christmas of 2025, 6 months after the record's been released. You would think, in a way, there would be some deep discounts on this pricing, and I don't see it. It's about the same kind of discount it was back in June, if not. It's probably about the same, maybe a little bit less, but it's nowhere, it's not a significant discount. So it is what it is with the pricing. But that said, it still was very exciting to get this music finally out there and get to hear so much of it. And there's going to be a Tracks 3. He already said it. And there's stuff that's on that I was surprised wasn't on this. So I was glad that there's going to be a Tracks 3, because that means we'll eventually get to hear that music too.
So I just went to Amazon. The CD is $229. The vinyl is $237, but there is a coupon price, which is $166.35. Don't know what that means. I assume if I click it, I can get it for $166.35.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. It's not. And used is $227 is the lowest, the used price on CDs.
That's
So
because everybody wants to make back the money they spent.
yeah, so there is no, yeah.
Well, that 166.35 price,
That's a
if
good,
if that's highly accessible to people, that is a good price.
yeah.
That's the reward for waiting
Yeah.
that people should get, I think.
Yeah.
Because I know people have been holding out
Yeah.
and hoping for Christmas. So I hope that's the case. I hope that
Yeah.
you're right, that that's a widely available
I mean,
price.
what I think that every one of these on the physical media, there's goodies. There's all kinds of goodies in the book. There's a poster, and there's like a matchbook cover for the Twilight Zone,
Yeah.
the Twilight Hour, sorry, section from the cocktail lounge. And there's like these it's neat
Yeah,
little,
there's some cool design elements
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But I don't know
I
if it's
agree.
worth
I know. I
what they were
agree
charging
with
for it.
Shawn
Yeah.
that it's definitely padded. It feels padded. This what could have been a 4 disc.
Yeah.
Like I would keep Twilight Hours and Faithless and Inyo as is, because those are the lost albums. Those
Yeah.
are the ones that hang together as albums, cohesive albums, and everything else is. And there is interesting stuff on each of the discs.
Right.
There's There's a couple of songs here and a couple of songs there that I've just really grown to love on this stuff. But again, it is padded, and I don't know how many versions we need of My Hometown, or
Yeah.
it's not, the original is still the best.
Yeah.
It doesn't really add anything.
So,
Right.
by the way, I did just go, I need to post this on Facebook for anyone looking at this. If you put it in your cart at Amazon, because I'm in Texas, it's 180.07. That includes sales tax.
Right.
So
Well, that sounds like a deal.
yeah, that's not a yeah. And if you order it the next 2 hours and 8 minutes, if you were listening to this live, you could still get it by Christmas Eve. So I will try to remember to post this on Facebook on the Set Lusting Bruce thing. That's yeah. And I think yeah, I in there one of the things that I always think is BS in the corporate world is they will say we should separate your annual performance appraisal with with your raise. We're not going to talk about if you're going to get more money. We're just going to talk about what kind of job you did. And like, oh, the whole time I'm listening, am I going to get a raise? Like, yeah, I know I did a good job. So it is hard to say, let's separate the financial cost from the actual product. It's hard to do that sometimes. So yeah, Joyce, we got sidetracked, but talk about a couple of the others that mean a lot to you.
Faithless,
Yeah.
which is,
Faithless was the surprise for me.
yeah.
I loved it, and I ended up buying the paperback book that they think this is based on, and I'm going to read the book.
Yeah, that Letters to You had a very good
Yes.
piece about the source material for Faithless. And Faithless, I don't know if everybody knows, people listening, Faithless is a soundtrack to a movie, like a Western, spiritual Western that never got made. And there's some instrumental and interstitial music in here, and it's just really, it's spooky, it's spiritual, it's gospely. It is really, it's unexpected again. It's a whole other thing, and you got to hear it. Again, so the movie didn't get made, so release it anyway. I don't know.
I haven't read St. Agnes's Stand yet, but in fact, there was just an article in the UK about this book and the connections, and the writer is going to be on the podcast in January. That was the surprise for me. I just loved how much that it just really spoke to me. And maybe because I'm on a spiritual journey and how I'm feeling, but I just loved it. Shawn, any thoughts?
Oh,
Or Caroline first.
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Caroline.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I've talked too much. Go.
No, I was looking on my Apple Music and I think I figured out. So for Twilight Hours, my favorite, I love the song Sunliner. I don't hear people talk about it, but I just wanted to give a shout out. I love that song, and I love the ending where he talks about the darkness will be broken up by the forgiving light. And I just love the way he's also using the kind of like sunshine metaphors similar to Western stars. My I've and also as a whole, tracks too, I really appreciate because you just see how varied Bruce's artistry is. He's playing with all these different genres and sounds, and I think it's pretty amazing just all the different places he's going with music. But I also feel like these albums they're either going to be your taste or not. Like, I really like the 80s. I'm sorry, I don't really know the album names very well, but I love all
The garage one.
yeah, like the 80s
Yeah.
material.
Yeah, the LA garage sessions.
Yeah, and I really like the Streets of Philadelphia, the with the
The
like
Streets of Philadelphia sessions, is that what they
yes,
called it? Yeah.
thank you, Shawn. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
okay.
No, I like those sounds a lot, but I also know people that are like, oh, I don't like this at all. But I think that's cool. Like he's experimenting with his sounds and they don't necessarily resonate with everyone, but I like hearing him play around with music.
The Streets of Philadelphia Sessions album was the one that made me go, wait a minute, though, what's going on here? Because we're being told that these are like lost, shelved albums, whatever you want to call it. Was the plan to release an album actually entitled The Streets of Philadelphia Sessions and not have Streets of Philadelphia on it? It really gets wobbly there as far as are these actually albums that were, quote, in the can, ready to be released, and then for whatever reason got pulled? It like messes up the timeline, if you will, to call each of them albums. But that said, I'm glad that there's music out there that wasn't there before because I'm a Bruce Springsteen fan and I'm interested in hearing all the stuff, even the stuff. If I hear it and I go, oh, it doesn't really grab me, it's not the end of the world. It's Bruce
Yeah.
hasn't betrayed me as an artist because he released something that doesn't grab me. It just doesn't grab me. And it doesn't mean I won't come back for more the next time he's ready to release something else. Sometimes that's what happens when you're a fan of somebody who's such a long-standing artist. We're talking about somebody with a 50 plus year career in music now. The odds are that you're going to everything that they do or say. That's slim. That doesn't happen on a personal level with people you're friends with. So why would it happen with an artist when you have that kind of artist listener type of relationship? And I think people have to deal with that sometimes. It's okay to say that this one doesn't grab me. I'm not a big fan of this. And it doesn't mean you're being disloyal as a fan. Or the flip side, it doesn't mean that he's betrayed you in some way as an artist. It's just not the case. So, there are albums or there are tracks on this collection, whether they be truly albums or not, that speak to me more strongly than others do. I'll tell you one that I don't think people have talked about enough at all is on the Streets of Philadelphia sessions, and it's something that sounds nothing like what is on or what mostly is on the rest of that record. And that's One Beautiful Morning. That track, first of all, I am like almost positive. I don't know this for sure, but I would be shocked if it's not the case that it was just as much inspired by the death of Kristen Ann Carr, the late daughter of Barbara Carr and Dave Marsh, as Streets of Philadelphia was, because there are lines in Streets of Philadelphia that are directly related to Kristen Ann Carr's experience, and Bruce actually mentioned her specifically in his Grammy Award speech for Streets of Philadelphia, that her spirit's in the song. And if you know the history of Kristen Ann Carr, the Kristen Ann Carr Fund that Bruce helped to really launch with a concert he did back in 93, and then you hear that track from that period, it's right around the time that all that happened. It's just incredibly moving. And it's a beautiful song, even if you don't know any of that history, just about dealing with the death of someone close to you. And I am so glad that song is now in the world. For that song alone, I'm glad that Tracks 2 exists. And fortunately, there are way more good things on it than just that, but I'm just glad that's out there.
My favorite weird song in this whole box is it's on Perfect World, which he claims is a grab bag that he
Right.
sings. Like there's
Yeah.
three Joe Grushecky songs that I wasn't really familiar with. So I'm glad to have them. But there's a song on here that's just called You Lifted Me Up. And I love it. The first time I heard it, and this to me, this was the whole fun of the box. It just, it's like this very happy, sort of hippie, kind of spiritual song. And it's Bruce, Steve, and Patty singing in harmony. And it's very upbeat and happy. And it sounds like in the 70s, there were a lot of these sort of religious pop songs that, like Jesus Christ Superstar and the Godspell song Day by Day, and then Put Your Hand in the Hands of the Man
Yeah.
by Ocean and Spirit in the Sky. And I'm Jewish, so I don't know if this is the way things are, but to me, it's what the youth pastor would be singing with his guitar. It's like,
Yes.
all of my praise to you. And it could be anything. It could be singing about his partner, a loved one, all of my praise, all of my love.
Right.
But it just gets in your head. It's a great
Yeah.
earworm and so strange for him. And I'm glad that is there because I like to put that on at the
I
end of a rotten day.
this is not unreleased, but because he had already sent another, but I just adore County Fair.
Oh
I
yeah.
just love that
Yeah.
version of the song.
Yeah.
It just is such a slice of life that just this small town, what we want it to be, going to the county fair can we remember where we parked and just everything. It is just, there is nothing significant about it, but it just brings me joy every time I hear it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it
and
too, Jesse. Whenever I listen to it, I see it in my head. Like I see them on the roller coaster, and I don't know. I always have the same images, and that's one of my favorites as well. And I love the story in the Deliver Me from Nowhere book where they talk about getting the sound of the crickets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and
Go ahead.
while it's been released before, the
Yeah.
Tracks 2 version is the best sounding version in my view of
I
that
agree.
track. It
Yeah.
sounds better than ever. And that song to me also has a really strong subtext. We were talking about songs about death and mortality. It's right there, like it's sprinkled throughout. The name of the band that they go see is James Young and the Immortal Ones. So they're right there. You're talking about age and mortality. And then when he gets that line right at the end, I wish this moment would never end. It's like this song is way deeper than just about a county
Yes.
fair, and it's a beautiful song. Yeah, I think it's one of his most underrated ones, and I'm just so glad that they released it the way they did with the sound that it has now.
Yeah, with the
It
crickets and
actually,
that sound. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry. It was supposed to close the movie, Deliver Me from Nowhere.
Really?
Yes. In the original, I haven't seen it yet, but I want to try and get my hands on it. There's been like an early version of the script that has been passed around on the internet. And yeah,
Oh,
they're
okay.
going to end with the county fair song, which I love, but I think what they ended up with is a bit more fitting. But yeah,
Really? I thought it was because they ended with Atlantic City, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought that was just a total. Now we're getting in the movie a bit. We're jumping ahead, but
All
hey, we've
right.
been at this for 2 hours, so
Yes, we have.
we might as well move it along. But
Yeah.
I thought the choice of Atlantic City at the end of the movie was a total like we're going to pick the most commercially successful track off Nebraska, but it doesn't make any sense. We've just
Well,
seen this story about him.
right.
Atlantic City has nothing to do with that story
Well,
we've just
what
seen.
Scott Cooper said that the reason they chose that was because you see in the movie him obviously struggling to have the songs be played with the band, and so Atlantic City at the end he wanted to show that the band eventually did nail some of these songs. That was his
Eh,
reasoning. I'm not saying
yeah, I got you. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I had read that too, and I get that because I love County Fair, I would have loved that because maybe that would have gotten a couple of downloads for that song or something. I think it just would
Right.
have been beautiful. All right, so, yes, we could keep talking about this forever, but we're going to move on to nothing exciting happened in July. A couple of things for me. Yeah,
It's true. I
of
left it
things.
completely blank.
Yeah.
Oh, there
Um,
was one little teaser
yeah.
during an interview for Tracks 2 in Rolling Stone.
Yes, please, you can share that
So
story.
Bruce is talking to Andy Green about Tracks 2 and says, at some point, quote, Electric Nebraska comes up, the infamous
Oh,
Electric
yeah.
Nebraska. And Bruce says, I can tell you there's nothing in our vault that would amount to an Electric Nebraska. And then about a month after the interview, he texts Andy Green and says, Hey, Andy, Bruce Springsteen here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I checked our vault, and there is an Electric Nebraska record, though it does not have the full album of songs. All best, Bruce. what the hell's going on here?
That does seem just I think about that like you I go into the garage and I hadn't opened up these boxes in a while and oh, there's were these books I was missing. Yes.
And it's like they're already planning the Nebraska box set at that point for sure. Because
Hmm.
that month when the interview was conducted in April, that's when he did the full album performance film that
Yeah.
eventually winds up in the box. So I'm thinking, are they going into the box not knowing that they have quote electric Nebraska material? It's mind blowing in a way. But
It's crazy.
anyway, that's our
Um,
teaser that we're getting a box to come with.
yes. All right, couple of things I already talked about. I rotating host, same thing as you did doing tracks two. I had an episode with the executive producers of Dave Barry's Tramp Like Us, which was a really good. And Peter Ames Carlin joined me for the second time to talk about Tonight in Jungle Land. And anytime I can have Peter Ames Carlin on the podcast, I think it's pretty good. Okay, so we're on August.
Yep.
I know we knew this would take a while, but I
Yeah,
hope everyone's having as much fun as I am.
I am.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think.
So August, Born to Run turns 50. Pretty
Amazing.
significant. It
Yeah.
just, it is amazing. I loved all the press that we talked about it. They released an outtake. Just such a significance of, I just loved everything that we talked about that this kind of classic album, 50 is a long time. And you think about all that's changed since then, and the song is just as relevant and speaks to people just absolutely. Caroline, why don't we start with you? Thoughts on this? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, okay, something that popped in my head. I know we'll talk more about the symposium, but the how you're saying like the song has endured so much, or the album rather. The Monmouth University students did a cover album, Runaway American Dream. It's really lovely. They like reinterpret a lot of the songs in really unique ways. And so it was just cool to hear the younger generation appreciating his music and shaping it for themselves. I really enjoyed that. I love Lonely Night in the Park. I used to listen to it a lot. It was on YouTube. So being able to hear like an actual better official version is awesome. I remember I read somewhere that Michael Pell hated that song, but I just absolutely love it. And I think it's very fitting for like his Jersey themed kind of milieu and all of that, this beachy settings. So yeah, but I can't believe it's the 50th anniversary. I think that's incredible and it's such a magnificent work.
Joyce?
50, I wish I could have been at that symposium. What I remember when Born to Run came out, it was just like I grew up in Boston and the big FM station was WBCN and they were one of the early boosters, one of the early Bruce boosters. And it was just like every time you turned on the radio, you would get a song from Born to Run. It was like they were playing every song from
Wow.
it. And it just was so dramatic. And it was, in a way, it was very, very backward looking. And no, I don't mean that in a bad, I just mean he was looking back and taking from all of that like, old R&B and Phil Spector and all of that older rock. And it really didn't sound like anything else that was on the radio at the time. It was like a link to the 50s in a way, that it was that moment when rock was getting ready to go punk and veer off into the future, and he was like in the past. So it was just I loved it, but it was like, where's he going to stay here in this stay here in the past, or what's the next move? And it's become such an iconic album that it's hard to think about it in a fresh way and what are the songs about and it when you revisit it, and I wrote a piece about it when it was the 40th anniversary, it was these people were just driving around in circles, basically. These kids in cars in Asbury Park, and they were not getting anywhere. It was just spinning wheels. And you really feel like it's an illusion of movement. Like that album is just driving, we're in the car, we're there, we're here. It's a hot summer night in the park and all that. But they weren't getting anywhere. And I think that is like where he was at that time. It took forever to make that record. And he was spinning his wheels and he was listening to the oldie station on the radio as he drove around in circles in Asbury Park. So I think that is like the dividing line in his career and in the maturity of his songwriting and his vision. And we saw how we see as we get into darkness and the river and all that, that he's like peeling off layers of the sound and experimenting with a form of music that can nod to the past, but not quite so literally. That is my take on Born to Run at 50.
I agree that Born to Run, they set out to make this great rock and roll album, greatest rock and roll album, if you will. They were shooting for the moon, and they got there very much. But to his credit, he didn't stay there. He moved in different directions after it, and I think it's great that he never did a Born to Run 2, which I think would have been horrible. Regarding Lonely Night in the Park, that's probably one of the few times I would actually agree with Mike Appel. I'm not a big fan of Lonely Night in the Park. It just sounds, I thought Lisa Iannucci came up with the perfect description of it. It sounds like I Need a Lover by John Mellencamp. And it doesn't sound like it would fit at all on Born to Run. I'm glad that it's
Yeah,
not
I don't
there.
think it would have fit. I
Yeah.
just
So it just struck me as odd that for the 50th anniversary of this great classic album, we're going to release an outtake that really has no connection to the album. It doesn't summon any elements of it in my view. And I just thought it was a lost opportunity. I would have much rather have seen them do something much more special, like maybe the bottom line shows that people have wanted for years. Get them cleaned up as much as possible. I don't know how well they can get them sounding. They might not sound perfect, but just release them at last officially as in the cleanest sound you can get. That would have been a much better way, in my view, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of this really major album in his career. And it almost seemed like an afterthought. Oh, we're going to put out this outtake. Here you go.
I
Okay.
think that that's the danger of doing the box set on the 30th anniversary. Or was
Right.
it the 30th or the
Yeah,
40th
yeah.
when
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
had the Hammersmith Odeon video, which is
Which
really
is,
great.
yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
But maybe there was nothing left in the vault.
Yeah.
We know that the bottom line tapes exist.
The audio,
Yeah, and that would have been, and
that
even
would
if
have
it were
been,
just streaming, I'm not saying a major bells and whistles box set. We already had two of them coming this year. I get that.
Yeah.
And Bruce's head might just not be, he's not always thinking about it's the 50th anniversary or whatever. The Darkness box didn't come out till 2010, and it was like 2 years after any significant Darkness anniversary. I don't think he necessarily thinks all the time about what am I going to do for the such and such anniversary or whatever. And maybe he wasn't here, and that's okay, but it just seems like, well, at least put out something at the bottom line
Yeah.
recording, something that was more tied to what made Born to Run so great and special and everything than Lonely Night in the Park. But again, these are like things I quibble with, but I'm not like
Sure.
burning up my fan card because of it.
Yeah. I do recommend, I know that you only have limited amount of time, but another recommendation, Strong Songs with Kurt Hamilton is a podcast where he breaks down a song, one song for each episode. And back in June of 2024, he did Born to Run. And I
Mhm.
sent him a message afterwards saying, I thought I loved Born to Run, but after listening to you breaking down this song, I love it even more. It's really, he talks about the not only the lyrics but the music and what they're doing and building. I really recommend that. It's a good thing. The So we do move on to we make those September, even though July is the actual birthday. I guess if you have a birthday on Christmas Day, you move it to another time. September.
Right.
Yes, as you were kind enough to say, it was the 10th anniversary of the podcast. I took 2 trips to Jersey and was able to meet a bunch of listeners and followers. But the symposium was truly just a something that is a once a lifetime experience of being in that room with what, maybe 700 people, I think
Right.
is what I heard, and to
Yeah,
hear
about that.
them tell the stories of recording it and talking about it and then hearing them do Thunder Road and Born to Run live. Got to hear Caroline make a presentation. I was in a roundtable with Flynn, another from None But the Brave podcast. We did a roundtable about Springsteen podcasting. It was just as a perfect a weekend as you can have. So, Caroline, you want to share some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I had gone to the Darkness, or I guess it was just called a conference, like back in 2018, I think. And we were
Mhm.
supposed to have one for the river in 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. So so I was really thrilled that they were bringing the conference element of it back. Obviously, the symposiums are absolutely incredible. You're hearing from the people who were there. In some cases, you're hearing from Bruce himself. Like that is like the dream. It was wonderful. But I also really like the conferences as well because it's not even just, oh, for academics or professors. There's all sorts of people that attend and to have deeper discussions about Bruce's music, and you get to think about his work from a lot of different perspectives. So I really, I enjoyed seeing people's different presentations, and it's usually about all different sorts of topics, Bruce's connection to like religion, politics, things like that. But yeah, as for the symposium itself, I mean, I was like very much moved to tears with having Ernest Boone Carter next to Max Weinberg. It was just I don't know. It was just really beautiful to see everyone there. I got really excited. I was like, oh, are they gonna do the whole album? But just having Thunder Road and Born to Run was amazing. And for me personally, I also really enjoyed Bruce's Q&A because he talked about a lot of different movies that he saw at the drive-in, things that I had never heard him reference before. So for me personally, that was very exciting. And obviously that relates to Born to Run and that kind of big, grandiose sound. So there were all sorts of things that I learned. And I just hope that the symposiums, I know that they will be eventually. People will be able to watch or read about because I know that a lot of people really want to hear some of the things that were discussed.
Yeah, one of the things that, just to follow up on that, I love the thought about Peter Pan and where Wendy came from. Uh,
Yes.
but Kenneth Womack, who's a professor there at Monmouth, we had dinner Friday night with Ed Rakowski, and he said, we're getting the whole album. And I'm like, really? And so there was a half a second of sadness that we only got 2 songs. And then I wisely said, shut the F up, Jesse. Do not be greedy. You just got the,
Yeah.
this band performing live. Don't be greedy. So, I did have just a moment of that. Yeah, and yes, it was wonderful getting to see many people in person that I had talked to many times on the podcast, including you, Shawn. Any thoughts on the symposium? And I promise we're not doing this to make you feel bad, Joyce.
No, I have a question. Did Bruce say that the Peter Pan book or the movie, that was where
It was
where
Yes.
a poster in his room.
He had a Peter Pan poster in his room, and that's where Wendy
Yeah.
came from.
Oh, can I tell you a quick thing?
Of course.
Of course.
In for the 1979 No Nukes concert at
Mhm.
Madison Square Garden. Was it 79 or it was 79? I went with Holly Kerr, who was, yeah, Bruce fan. She was a friend. Obi got us tickets. And it was Bruce's birthday. We went to that show where he was turning 30. And we had backstage passes, courtesy of Obi, again, RIP. And so Holly had a package with her, I mean, it was a wrapped up package. And I'm like, wow, what is that? And she said, let me give Bruce a birthday present. And she had found him a copy of Peter Pan, the book. Like it wasn't like a first edition. It was just like
Right.
a nice copy of Peter Pan. And she wrote in it a little happy birthday thing. And he didn't know her yet. She was just later, she worked for Steve many years later, but
Mm.
we were just two girls who went up to him at this backstage thing and said thanks and happy birthday. And she handed him the Peter Pan book, and he looked at it and just it's really baffled kind of way. Okay, thank you. Like, why are you giving me this Peter Pan book? But so that's really funny. I had not made that Peter Pan connection. I thought that it was just something that, yeah, it's Wendy. Okay, Peter Pan, I get it. But he just looked so puzzled when she gave him that book. So that's interesting that he did take it from Peter Pan, that he did take Wendy from Peter Pan.
I love that story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
Ollie was
And
great.
what's great about how it came to light through the symposium is there's a grad student. She might be a graduate by this time. I don't know. I can't remember her name offhand, but we have her article on we have a collection of like other cool stuff on the internet that's Bruce related. And she did an article for Monmouth University's magazine where she developed this theory because he mentioned having the poster in his room. He
Yeah.
didn't talk about Born to Run at all or what being connected to Wendy. He just mentioned in passing in an article, really old article, like in Crawl Daddy magazine, that old. And she took that and like pondered whether he might have drawn inspiration for the name from that poster being in his bedroom because she took a bunch of facts and put them together. Like he wrote a lot of the album in his rented house in Long Branch. In that bedroom, he talks about writing Born to Run. She put all this together in an article and she actually did a painting
Yeah.
that kind of put together all the facts as a research tool for her own usage and included the painting in the article of what his bedroom might have looked like and where the poster might have been and everything. So Bob Santelli, when he interviewed Bruce during the symposium, actually got to ask him directly about that. And that was when he said, yeah, I took it from there. So it was
Yeah.
really cool the way it developed and came out.
I will have to check
So,
out that article. That
It's
sounds
really
fascinating.
cool. The painting is really, really cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's if you go to Meet Me Out on the Web section on Letters to You,
Okay.
it's the second from the top. It's called Song Sleuth. Her name is Carly Migliorosi. I'm sorry, Migliorisi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Carly, but if you're
Hmm.
listening, but my apologies if I'm not. Lets us in on the
Carly,
little known history behind one of rock's legendary anthems, and it was in Monmouth University magazine in 2023. And they finally got him on the record to confirm.
That is awesome.
Patience is rewarded.
There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
But I thought, of course, there were lots of great highlights, but Joyce, you should have been there because I think it would have been important. It definitely would have been important to have you there. The conference part that Caroline was talking about became extra important in my view because that was really where you only got to that was really the only part of the weekend where you got to hear women's voices about Born to Run. I was really disappointed in the fact that there were no major. It's great that Carly's work got confirmed via Bruce, but there weren't. Barbara Pyle was part of a panel. She's the photographer from 75. She like shot their passport photos, got lots of great shots of them during the Born to Run period, including rehearsing in the morning after an all night finishing of the album. And she was interesting and fun, but she didn't get much time for one. But there were no like major critics, writers, types to talk about the album, and I think there should have been. It would have been great to have Suki there, Suki Lahav, but there are travel issues because she lives in Israel and with everything going on, she was understandably, it was difficult for her to travel and be there. She does appear in the film. Tom Zimney debuted a great film on Friday night about the making of Jungle Land, which is just great documentary. I hope that gets widely seen. That's another thing that I hope once the archives building is up, people get to see. There was a lot of great stuff, but it's telling, I think, that it took Bruce himself to start talking about the girl groups. Nobody else on Saturday, with all these people on stage, talked about the girl groups, Little Eva, that whole element of what led to Born to Run. Only Bruce himself talked about that. Now, on Sunday, in the conferences that Caroline's talking about, there were several people who talked about that. Lauren Anke was there, former vice president of education at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She did a great session that talked about that kind of stuff. But and Caroline's session was great on Backstreets and the layers of meaning you can find in that song. But I just felt it was a missed opportunity, and I hope that doesn't happen again with the archives moving forward. It was way too many males on stage
What isn't this a recurring?
Yeah, I mean, it's been
at
like
the
that.
archives, like with their
Was
events.
it at the archives or was it? Oh, I'm thinking of there was a video and it was all men
It's what frustrates
talking about
me.
him
It's most
a
like
few
for the
years
cultural
ago.
critics, like the cultural writers and critics, it's always all men, always.
I
And
think it was maybe the first one.
yeah,
That,
I think for most of them,
but there was some kind of video that was put out, and it was just the women were listening, and it was just all men
uh,
talking about it. And this was, I don't know, this was pre-pandemic, maybe. I
I'm
got
not
this,
sure what you're talking
yeah.
about an event that was held at Monmouth?
I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
if it was Monmouth,
Or
Well,
somewhere else.
it was
and
in Asbury Park, it was in New Jersey, and there were, I'm sorry, I can't be more
That's okay.
specific, but it
no,
was,
I'll say though that at the archives, it's more women that work there.
of
So, I
course,
mean, that,
because it's
yeah,
Right.
archives.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good, but I just get frustrated because obviously I know that it was for the most part male dominated when they were working on these albums, so that's who you're going to hear from. But I feel like for the writers and the critic,
Right.
I just wish that they would have a female participant.
Yeah. At the time that Born to Run was released, I mean, there were maybe three women working as rock critics in the whole country, and many of us are retired now or whatever. But yeah, oh, maybe next year.
yeah, I think
Yep.
that's a really good point to bring up. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they had to make a change because of that. And I know that 3 years ago, I can't remember exactly, but I realized that if I wasn't careful, the podcast would be nothing but middle-aged men talking to me. And I'm a middle-aged man, so I get it. So about 3 years ago, I specifically made a decision to get as many different voices on the podcast as possible. I've been blessed to have 3 or 4 of the female speakers that were on the symposium joined me afterwards. The symposium was the gift that kept on giving. I probably got 6 or 8 episodes out of just people joining me and talking about that. But yeah, I think that's, and it is one of those things, if we get a little serious when it's almost 11 o'clock here in Dallas, that cultural bias, you just don't see it because I recognize the fact that I'm 66, white guy raised in the South, and my viewpoint is a specific viewpoint, and I am an idiot if I don't acknowledge that there is a whole world that see things different than I do
Mm.
because of their race, because of their sex, and because of their upbringing. So well said. Appreciate that. And one funny note before we move on, they mocked me a little bit as I am on the record of not being the biggest fan of Jungle Land. And they said, Jesse, you're watching a film of nothing but Jungle Land. Are you in Hades? And I said, no. In fact, it made me really like the song a lot more watching it. Joyce, it was brilliant because there was no narration. It was just them talking about it like you were a spot, like a little fly on the wall. So yeah,
It was all in studio footage of them
Yeah.
working on Jungle Land
Wow.
at 914 Studios. They don't have, there's no record plant footage that we know of. So it was like the early versions of it at 914.
Yeah.
yeah.
But fascinating. And then it ends like The Wizard of Oz. All that footage is black and white video. When they finally get the song, so to speak, as much as possible, you fade to black, you open up with color footage of them performing it live at the bottom line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, we are getting late, so let's move on to October. I realized that he was getting an award, but I did not realize what a big deal this was. Shawn, you want to talk a little bit about this?
It was the first ever what they're calling Legacy Award by the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which is an offshoot of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is the organization that does the Oscars every year. And Martin Scorsese presented the award to Bruce for being, quote, an artist whose body of work has inspired generations of storytellers and deeply influenced our culture. Bruce got his award. He told some great stories about movies, going to the movies. I don't know if you've seen it, Caroline, but it probably mirrors some of the stuff he was talking about at the symposium. And I think you'll get a big kick out of it if you haven't seen it yet. Because he talks about some great films, but he also talks about cheesy stuff like seeing William Castle horror films. And it's a really cool video. And then he did solo acoustic versions of 3 of his songs: Streets of Philadelphia, obviously his first big film soundtrack song, and Atlantic City and Land of Hope and Dreams. And of course, before singing the final song of the evening, he said, of course, as we all know, outside of this lovely world of dreams and entertainment, we're all so fortunate to work in and to be a part of. All hell is breaking loose in our beloved United States. And he talked about, he said, I won't read it all, but it was very similar to what the kind of things he was saying on the tour in Europe. And he said at the end, before performing Land of Hope and Dreams, he said, this is a small prayer for all those folks out in the streets today and for our country, no kings. This is Land of Hope and Dreams. And after he sang it, he added, may freedom ring. That's our Brucey.
I love it. I've seen the clips of the songs, but now I need to go back and watch the discussion.
Yeah, the acceptance speech, if you will.
Yeah,
It's funny and interesting simultaneously.
yeah. Very nice. Caroline, have you seen it?
I read the speech. I didn't watch
Okay.
it. I didn't realize I'm definitely gonna do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is very similar to what he talked about at the symposium. But I just really I loved hearing him name drop all these different movies because like when I was doing research for my book, there's a lot of films that he talked about that I hadn't come across in my research and that he never talked about before. And I love the stories of them going to the drive-in. And it was really more just he was saying like it's not just oh I'm going to see this specific movie. We're just going to the drive-in and whatever's playing we're gonna enjoy. So yeah, I really cool. And I love hearing about just how I guess intertwined film is as an influence for him as music is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Very nice. Joyce, have you seen any of that?
I have not,
Okay,
no.
we'll have to check that out. I
No.
haven't either. So the film comes out.
Yeah, speaking of the movies,
Yeah. Yeah, I went Thursday night before the opening on Friday.
me
Enjoyed
too.
it, but I did at the end sit there and go, I don't know who this movie is for.
Yeah.
And I, unfortunately, in today's society, we treat all art as sporting events. What was the box office? How was it ranked? What did it go? And I saw it a second time, and then a third time I went with my wife and son, and I almost warned them beforehand. I said, this is a different kind of movie. It's a quiet movie. This is not about music. It is about Bruce's struggle with depression. And I think, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. I think knowing that they both came in, were very enjoyed the movie. But I think the best thing about it is on the way home, my wife said, can you play Nebraska since they kept talking about it in full? And I did. And she says, that's interesting. I think I've seen that Martin Sheen movie. And then I said, oh, and my son is he is very, being an only child, family is everything to him with his cousins and everything. And so I played Highway Patrolman for him. And out on the street, till then had been his favorite Bruce show. He loves Out in the Street. He has now become obsessed with Highway Patrolman. He plays it almost daily. He has this whole debate of was like when he went out there, was he trying to catch him or was he just going through the motions? Did he tell his guy that my had car breakdown? Of course he could. He is obsessed with this song and it has now become his favorite Bruce song, which I'm like, okay, if the movie did that, awesome. So Shawn, you walked in, you don't like biopics as much. You had thoughts, were a little concerned. Once you saw the finished product, were you pleasantly surprised? Felt, yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be, or somewhere in between?
I too went as early as I could to a Thursday night screening, and I saw it in IMAX because
Me
you could
too.
see it in IMAX. And I here's there are a couple issues for me. There are a lot of issues for me with it, but one thing is I don't really feel that it accurately told when we say what Nebraska was about and led to it, and I'm making air quotes as I say this for people who can't see me. I think Nebraska was about a lot of things besides just Bruce Springsteen struggling with his depression. And unfortunately, the film reduces it to that's what was going on, and that's why he made that music.
Mhm.
And Nebraska also, we know, anybody who's really read the history of it, it was one of the greatest happy accidents in the world. It's not an album that Bruce Springsteen actually made in the traditional sense. He was making demos for his next record, and that's all he thought he was doing at that time. And then eventually the decision was made, rightly, I believe, that these recordings were good enough to stand on their own as a record. I love the album Nebraska. I think it's a great album. I don't think it's the greatest thing Bruce Springsteen has ever done, because one, I don't think there is one greatest thing that Bruce Springsteen has ever done. I think one of the things that makes him so great is that he's done a lot of great music, a lot of great albums. And picking Nebraska over, say, Darkness on the Edge of Town or Born to Run or Tunnel of Love or The Rising, to me, that's a fool's game. There is no one great Bruce Springsteen album. But at least lately, Bruce Springsteen himself is saying he thinks it's his best work ever. And he even has said that he thinks Born in the USA wasn't very good, which I strongly disagree with too. And that's okay. An artist can have their own opinions about their work that we might not agree with as listeners, or I might not agree with as a listener. Sometimes they say an artist is the worst judge of their own work. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But I didn't feel, as from my perspective as a fan and what I've read and learned over the years about Bruce's career, I didn't feel that the film accurately conveyed what happened during that period. I think creating a mythical love interest was a problem. And again, I think it overemphasized the role that his mental health issues played in the art to the point where it just oversimplified things, which is a common thing that happens in Hollywood movies. So I wasn't too impressed on a personal level. Now, what I will say though is that if this movie, one, inspires anyone to become more interested in Bruce Springsteen or Nebraska or his work, that's a good thing. And if it inspires anyone who's struggling with mental health issues to go get some help, to reach out to people and connect the way Bruce did, that's a good thing. So I don't want to trash it and say it was this horrible thing, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to see it more than once that I've seen it. I don't feel it's, to me, a good documentary about Bruce or any other artist always beats a biopic in my view anyway. I totally don't get why people want to hear Jeremy Allen White's versions of Bruce Springsteen songs. Like they're listening to it on their own. They're not even like in the movie, but you can go out and buy a record. They're playing the
Yeah.
music on E Street Radio, which is, I don't want to hear Jeremy Allen White singing Nebraska or whatever. I'm on fire. I want to hear Bruce Springsteen sing those songs. Or at least if I'm fine with covers of songs, but I'm more interested in like real musicians' covers of those songs than an actor's cover of a song. But so be it, to each. If people want to do that's okay too.
Mm.
The last thing I'll say about this, since it's Christmas time, and I said this on E Street Radio when Jim Rotolo asked me about it, but it's good enough a line, I think, to repeat, is to me, the whole biopic thing, it's like in A Charlie Brown Christmas, there's a scene where Schroeder is playing the piano and he's playing some Beethoven, of course. And Lucy asks him, "What's so great about Beethoven? He's never been on a bubblegum card." To me, biopics are like bubblegum cards. Like it seems like it's the thing you got to do now. So if Bruce Springsteen needs his biopic to reach people and maybe can turn more people onto his music, so be it. He's got his bubblegum card slash biopic now, and I hope it does that. But again, to me personally as a fan, I just didn't find it that engaging or interesting, and I don't need to see it more than the one time I've seen it.
Okay. Caroline?
So I saw it at New York Film Festival, but I like saw it in a row. Like I went to a press screening very early in the morning, watched it, was very unsure. Saw it again at the official screening, not the one that Bruce was there, unfortunately. And then I liked it a bit more. And then I saw it a third time and I didn't like it as much. I have the same feeling as you, Jesse. Who is this movie made for? It's not the type of story or the way it's presented that would appeal to any casual fan. It's just not. It's a very internalized film about depression. That's not easy to make. And then for the fans, I think there's just too many gaps and inaccuracies that it's hard to fully appreciate. So it exists in this kind of weird limbo. Jeremy Allen White, I think, is amazing, but it's pretty much a version of who he plays on The Bear. It makes sense. But my biggest gripes were actually the female characters. His everything about the movie was streamlined, as one of you said. It's just purely a father-son story, which is fine, but his mom is like completely barely even in it.
Yeah.
And it, and even his like sister and there's nothing about his grandparents, and I could not get behind the fake the girlfriend composite character. Like, I understand that why maybe they wouldn't want to. I don't know. I've heard two different things about who he was dating at the time, so I'm actually not quite sure. But what bothered me about it was not necessarily that it was just a composite character, but you have to make it a stereotype from his song. Oh, she's a waitress, she's a single mom. Like,
Ooh.
I thought that was a little ridiculous. So those were my biggest gripes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie for what it was and did not have a problem with the composite girlfriend. I thought the actress played it really well. And if this was fiction, I would be pulling for them to get together. And I do agree that the worst part of the movie to me is they have that one scene where he's dancing with his mom, but there's no other showing the, like, I'm thinking of The Wish, right? Where
Right.
she stopped me from climbing through. I would have liked that scene, especially the actress who played her mom, absolutely wonderful. And I also, as I'm wishing, I think it's a little sad that not one member of the E Street Band gets a word of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree, but I also read someone that said maybe I think they're just rationalizing, but maybe
yeah,
it's to show the sense of isolation that he was feeling, which I can get behind, but I was sad as
yeah,
well. It
yeah.
just felt like empty and weird.
Yeah, the other thing I've said, and then we'll move on, is this is compared a lot to the Bob Dylan pick, Complete
Unknown.
Unknown. First off, Timothy Chalamet is one of the biggest stars in the world. There is Oscar buzz about his movie about ping pong that's coming out, and I can't wait
Yeah.
to see it. Secondly, the beauty of this is the songs that about Dylan's life during that period are songs people know versus the songs about this part of Bruce's life the casual fan doesn't know. So that was another thing hurting against it. I think it's easy for us to do Monday morning quarterbacking and say it would have been interesting to see more about where these stories came from and where he built that. I met John Cusack for 3 minutes at a pop culture convention, and I was telling him how much I loved Love and Mercy, and he said Brian was happy with it, and that was enough for me. And Warren Zane said Bruce was happy with the film. That's enough for us. And I think you don't make multi-million dollar films for an audience of one, and it does seem that they from the interview, right? Bruce's sister has said that what a gift. So yeah,
Mhm.
it is in there. And Jeremy Allen White, Golden Glove nomination. I would have liked to seen some Oscar buzz just because I support the brand, but we have it, it's there. And as I said before we started recording, I've already ordered the Blu-ray. So,
I'm gonna order
I
it too
yeah,
again.
because I support the brand. Anything, and so then we've got, why don't you take us through the end of the year, Shawn? We'll do November and
Well,
December.
let's remember that the same day the movie's released officially,
Oh, good
the
point.
Nebraska '82 expanded edition box set is released. Originally, it was supposed to come out a week earlier, and then suddenly there were, quote, production delays. I think so, in reality, they probably realized it makes more sense to release it the same day as the movie. But in any
Yes.
case, for whatever reason, it comes out, it ends up coming out the same day as the movie. And if you love Nebraska, there's some interesting stuff here. And we finally get to put to rest whether, quote, Electric Nebraska is as great as everybody claimed it was. Not everybody, but at least a significant group of rabid fans who were excited about Electric Nebraska. I don't count myself among them, quite frankly. I wasn't that impressed with the tracks done with the E Street Band, and I'm glad Nebraska was released the way it was released. I think that was the correct decision. Some of the outtakes are a bit interesting to hear, but again, interesting is one thing, whether you would want to hear these every day or go back to it. I, if I want to be, quote, inspired in a way, or at least nurtured in some way by the work of art that is Nebraska, I will return to the original album, which sounds great, by the way, in this box set, but it sounded great a few years ago when it was remastered.
Mm.
There isn't to me, a noticeable difference between the newly remastered version and the last remastered version. They both sound great, but the good news is that it sounds great. To me, the biggest highlight of the box, and I'm glad now that it's finally available for people to stream on their own if they want, is to see the film that Tom Zimney did of Bruce performing the album from start to finish in an empty theater, similar to the way he did Darkness on the Edge of Town with the E Street Band for the Darkness spots. It's pretty much him by himself. He's got, as a bit of accompaniment, Charlie Giordano, and I forget the name of the gentleman who joins them. Sorry, I'd have to look that up. Anyone remember who plays with Charlie and Bruce on
I
that?
do not.
Hang on a second. Sorry. One more second. It's loading now. Larry Campbell,
Okay.
who's played with Bruce previously too. And it's just, to me, it's really great to finally see Bruce. Like, it's the closest you ever get, in my view, to seeing him perform this album from start to finish. He's never done it before. Whether he'll ever do it again, I don't know. But it's, of course, film because you've got Tom Zimney at the helm. But the key difference between this and the original album is you've got Bruce, old Bruce now. The aging of him and his voice really works well with this material. Might not always work well. Sometimes in concert these days, the aging of his voice gets a little bit shaky. But here on the Nebraska material, it fits so well because that's the perspective of the album. Oh, yeah, there's a great line when Dave Marsh was talking about Nebraska in his book Glory Days. He once described the perspective, the songwriting perspective of Bruce on Reason to Believe as that cranky old preacher Ecclesiastes. And that's how Bruce sounds in this performance. And it's very well done, of course. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it yet. That to me is the biggest highlight of the box.
Caroline?
Yeah, I've like being on the Backsheets message boards for so many years, like I always people were talking about Electric Nebraska. And I really like listening to it, but I don't know. It's hard to describe. I think his voice sounds really good on it, but I also think it's interesting to listen to because you can tell, oh, this isn't working, or this sounds odd. And I'm not even just saying that like in comparison. I just think the sounds of it dilute a lot of the darker emotion behind it.
Mm.
And it's just too, the juxtaposition is just too weird. Just some of the darkness of the things that he's singing about. And also like with Reason to Believe, I feel like it would be a lot easier to on the electric version. It would be a lot easier to be like, oh, this has a more positive ring to it, but it really doesn't. It just sounds upbeat. But I don't know, I like listening to it to hear that kind of like strangeness, and you can hear him like, I guess, working through it. And I find that interesting. And yeah, I just want to shout out, I really love the song Gun in Every Home. Some of the other outtakes I had heard a lot on YouTube already. But yeah, re I'm glad we finally got it. So yeah.
Yeah.
And at a much cheaper price this time around, by the way.
Yes, it did. Yes, it
Sony
did.
learned their lesson, I think, from Tracks 2.
Yes. Joyce, any thoughts?
So my preferred way to listen to Nebraska is the vinyl that I bought the day Nebraska came out in whatever year that was, because I think it's meant to be listened to on old vinyl. It's like a Hank Williams record. You don't want to listen to that on a CD.
Yeah.
And see, I always have a problem with the Electric Nebraska faction because it implies that Nebraska is not enough. And it's you want Bruce to be something else. And no, this is what he put out. That was his vision. It was a sparse acoustic folk Hank Williams inspired record. And why does it have to be electrified? Just because you can't make yourself sit down and listen to something quiet. So I'm not looking forward to an electric Nebraska. You don't need it. You have Nebraska. I like the band versions that he has done over the years of the Nebraska songs. I love Atlantic City electrified, and there is no bad version of Atlantic City. No matter who is singing it, there is no bad version. That is one of his greatest songs. But I was underwhelmed by the electric Nebraska that was presented on this box. I liked the sort of punky psychobilly Born in the USA, but that was it. I hope to never hear that version of Downbound Train again.
Thank you. I was hoping someone would bring it up. I was like,
I had to turn it off.
this
It gave me a headache. And that's one of my favorite songs on Born in the USA. It's a beautiful song. It's the first song I learned how to play on the guitar. It has beautiful chord changes. And this is, oh my God, it was one of the worst things I've ever heard. Sorry, Bruce. I agree with Shawn about the video and the old man's perspective of that. And it's really interesting, and it's worthwhile. But yeah.
Yeah,
old Nebraska, old acoustic Nebraska on an ancient vinyl. That's the way to hear it.
Back in the day when you rented DVDs with Netflix mailing them to you, or you went to Blockbuster, I always looked for the ones that had the bonus features.
Right.
I wanted the director's cut. I wanted the deleted scenes. My wife, no interest in seeing any of that. So I think of these as deleted scenes on a DVD. That it isn't, oh my gosh, we've gotten the Holy Grail. There is a couple of people very vocal on social media that everything till Bruce put out Tracks 2, everything he did new was just, why are you denying us Tracks 2? And so I I when Brian Wilson put out a version of Smile, I enjoyed it. I was happy with it. I was glad there's a documentary about how this brought him peace and happiness. But listening to it, it isn't, oh my God, I loved it. It was great, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I've been missing this. It's just another chapter in the story. And that's what this is to me. It's just another chapter. I enjoy hearing them. There are songs on Tracks 2 that if I was making a playlist, an old-fashioned cassette, I would want in there because I like them enough. I want to hear them again. But I think we're kidding ourselves if, you know, that this quote unquote electric Nebraska is this oh my God, there's been this magical treasure that we've been denied seeing. No, it's just another piece of his journey puzzle. And I think it's cool we got it. And I certainly enjoyed listening to it, except for Downbound Train. And I'm glad we have it. Will I play it a lot? I don't know. I tend to tracks too, tend to play some of those over and over again. Yeah, I agree with you. The film was a lot of fun to watch. That was the highlight to me too, seeing him do this and a couple of the would I pay money? First of all, I'd pay Bruce no matter what he's doing, but would I be excited about a rockabilly trio of him and two other people traveling to do some of these songs and other? Absolutely. Yeah. But it's nice we have it. It's on our shelf and we go, okay, we have another part of his journey.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. All right. So we are wrapping up shortly. We have November, December. Do you want to take us through, Shawn, and then we'll have some final thoughts?
Yeah, starting the month before November, October, we saw a resumption of the monthly live archives release, which again will probably continue until Bruce has another big project as far as a tour, new album.
Yeah.
That seems to be the pattern. And of course, we're hoping for a special Christmas time release. But we saw releases of Oakland, California, October 26th, 2007, which featured Joyce Millman in the audience.
Yay.
You can hear her screaming and yelling, I'm sure, at certain moments because it was a great show, another great one out there. And it's just so great that they sound so well, or they're mixed and mastered so well that hearing the sound quality of these is fantastic.
I will say that on that show, he played Thundercrack, which I hadn't heard since I left the East Coast. And it didn't go over well. Maybe from where I was sitting, there were a lot of people like looking at each other. What is this? Is this a new song? I don't know. It was just, I don't think that song really traveled outside of the New York, New Jersey, Boston, Philly area.
Interesting.
The legend of Thundercrack didn't really make it to Northern California. I don't know how it did in LA, but it was when he was trying to get a sing along, and I mean, it was just not working. And then he went back and did it again in Oakland, in San Jose, and on the Wrecking Ball tour. And that one didn't go over either.
Huh.
He kept trying to make Thundercrack happen in Northern California. And I was
funny.
singing,
That
but
is
hey, I
interesting.
was happy.
That's great.
And then we got just this month, we got another Wrecking Ball tour show, HK Arena in Turku, Finland, May 8th, 2013, which also sounds great. And on a sad note, in November, we lost Jimmy Cliff. And sadder in a way is more than in a way. It is sadder because Jimmy lived a long life too, but Joe Ely died far too soon. He was taken by a horrible disease, and it, as Bruce himself said, it's a major loss.
Yeah.
He was such a great live act. He was just one of the best in concert. I saw him in a tiny club. I think it was early 80s. It was probably when Musta Nada Got a Lotta came out, which was like his breakthrough rock radio album. He had Bobby Keys on saxophone in his band.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, he burned the place down. It was just incredible. Yeah, that really was a lot. And he was like a link between rock, country, and punk, which is just really, really incredible when you look. For someone who maybe wasn't that well known, he connects Bruce and the Clash. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at the Houston show, May of 2014. where I was cheated out of This Is Your Sword for seeds. But Joe Ely joined Great Balls of Fire and Lucille at the
Wow.
and that's one of my favorite shows. Seeing
Wow.
them there, just really nice. Yeah, Americana before there was Americana,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we don't know what 2026 is going to lead to. Hopefully some exciting things. But I want to take just a few minutes and first off, thank our listeners that have stuck with us. We appreciate it. It's been a busy year. So, Caroline, you want some final thoughts and how people can reach you?
Oh, sure. Final thoughts. Definitely the symposium is probably my highlight this year. And I am glad there was a biopic. It was something I was always wondering whether or not it would happen. And I do think Jeremy Allen White was the perfect person to play him. I think what I'm going to take away the most this year is my renewed or newfound appreciation for Nebraska. I it is it's a challenge to listen to sometimes just because it really does pull you into this very dark mood and the sparse sounds. It's not something that I really gravitated towards that much, but seeing the film, reading the book, Deliver Me from Nowhere, I really appreciate the just yeah, as you said, like the happy accident of how this all came together. And for me, just personally going through some things, I finally get Nebraska, and I understand that interview quote that Bruce had talked about the album about how when you have no community, you have no friends, you're lost in that way and isolated. That is when, you know, bad things can happen. And I get it more now. So that's what I'm gonna take away from this year is really appreciating that record.
Very
Mm.
nice. And if someone wants to reach you,
Oh yes, if someone wants to reach me, my website, carolinemaddenwriter.com, or you can email me, carolinemadden@outlook.com.
very nice. Joyce?
I hope that in 2026, Bruce continues to kick butt politically. He needs to speak out more. I would like to see him, if he's not busy doing anything else, pick up the radio show again, because he used that during the 2016 to 2020. He used it during the pandemic
Yes.
to call out a lot of stuff. And I think that I'm surprised he picked it up sooner than this. But so hopefully it really lifted my spirit to when he started to just not, yeah, he knew he had to speak out and he did. And everything he said is just keep going, just keep hammering. I also love a lot, most of the box, and I'm going to continue to explore it. And yeah, that's about it for me. I'm hopefully he'll surprise us and there will be some sort of
Yeah.
live thing.
And if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Find me on Blue Sky.
Okay, very nice. Good. You want to give your name?
Joyce Millman,
Okay.
Millman. That's my Blue Sky handle.
All right, very nice. And Shawn?
We at Letters to You, and I say we because I'm so fortunate to have such a great group of people helping to keep this going, and chief among them are Caroline and Joyce. And I'm hoping and looking forward to them continuing to contribute to the website as things develop. Again, we don't know what's going to happen in the new year, but all indications are that Bruce Springsteen is going to continue being Bruce Springsteen, continue to make great music, inspire us in so many different ways. A key question that he would ask each night on this tour. And again, I said it earlier, but it bears repeating. I think this tour this year is one of the greatest things he's ever done. And it was, in a funny way, it was like Nebraska. It was a happy accident because I don't think he intended it or anybody else foresaw it being what it would become. But a key question he would ask each night is, are you ready to join together? And that's crucial because we can't count on Bruce or any one person to take on this massive problem or set of problems that we have. But together, and I think this is a key point in Bruce's music, it's been that way for a long time. Together, we can do a lot of great things. And I'm hoping that will happen in 2026. I'm looking forward to the new year. I think this year has been a year of ups and downs on a lot of levels, but I think ultimately it's been a year of hope. And I'm glad that Bruce is still out there doing what he does. I hope that nobody thinks that because I quibble with this move or that move that don't appreciate, because I do deeply appreciate the fact that we still have Bruce and a lot of his colleagues around. We talked about a lot of the people who we lost this year, and there are music fans who for years haven't had their favorite artists around, or they're even if they're around, they're just not doing the kinds of things that Bruce continues to do. We're very fortunate that he's kept such good care of himself and he's maintained a group of people around him who are all about doing that and are in it for the long haul. And I feel as a fan, I'm in it for the long haul too. I'm looking forward to whatever comes next. And I hope that come the end of 2026, we'll have a lot to talk about again. And maybe we'll go to a 6 or 7 hour show instead of what did we do? Did we set the new record tonight?
We
Aren't we
may
at like,
have, yes.
yeah,
I
three and a
think we're
half
at 3
hours?
hours, yes.
We're giving Bruce a run for his money with his
Yes, we
show
are.
times.
Yeah, I just want to thank all three of you for joining me again. This is a joy. I love hearing your thoughts and your feelings and giving these different perspectives. I want to thank the listeners for supporting this podcast for the year. 10 years is a lot of Bruce talk, and the only reason it's still going is because you guys still want to listen. So I hope everyone, this will come out on New Year's Eve. And so I hope everyone has a safe and happy New Year's Eve and a great 2026. Let's hope for a lot more music and joy and a blue wave, if I can throw that out there.
Amen and hallelujah.
Yeah.
Thank you, listeners. Goodbye.
Happy New Year, everybody.